Take me on home to the asylum. Never alone in the asylum. Anarchy ruled, it was wild, but through it all you never smiled. Joke's on you, I'm in your head, so look who's laughing now. Remember in Arkham City, I killed your girl, so pretty. That was the night you let me die. But when I looked you in the eye, that's when I knew we'd be together. Look who's laughing now. I'm stuck in your head and I'm laughing. Ah, I feel you with dread and I can't stop laughing. Your parents are dead and I can't stop laughing. What else can I do? Now I'm part of you. I am the clown, prince of crime. And we've had a hell of a time. You're part of me, I'm part of you. And now there's nothing left to do. I just can't wait till I'm in control. Who'll be laughing then? I drove you round the bend and I'm laughing. I'm with you till the end and I can't stop laughing. I killed all your friends and I can't stop laughing. Oh yeah. Think I can taste your fear. Now that my time is near. I'm in your blood, I'm so alive. I only wish you'd let me drive. It won't be long till I make you kill. Who'll be laughing then? Barbara's dead and I'm laughing. Ah! Jason Todd's dead and I can't stop laughing. I'm even dead and I can't stop laughing. What else can I do? Now I'm part of you. I drove you round the bend and I'm laughing. I'm with you till the end and I can't stop laughing. I killed all your friends and I can't stop laughing. I'm cock-a-doodle-doo. All because of you. I'm stuck in your head and I'm laughing. Ah, I fill you with dread and I can't stop laughing. Your parents are dead and I can't stop laughing. I'm stuck in your head and I'm laughing. I filled you with dread and I can't stop laughing. Your parents are dead and I can't stop laughing. What else can I do? Now I'm part of you.
Welcome, everybody. Are you laughing? Are you laughing now? Hopefully. Hopefully. It's a good day to be laughing. I'm not, are you? If you're not laughing, why are we here? What are we doing? What are we doing? Heads up real quick, just before we get like rolling. I will, in a few minutes, be running upstairs frantically to let Romeo back in. He really wanted to go outside and play, but it's cold and he has no body fat, and so he gets cold quickly. But he wanted to go out and play in the leaves, so I let him do that. He's out playing, but in like 2 minutes he's probably gonna start barking and want to come back in because he's gonna realize how cold he is. And so just a heads up. Just a heads up, okay? I might have to run in a second to go let him back in. But anyway. How are you guys doing? Everybody feeling good? Everybody happy? I can't breathe. Hopefully you're doing good. I know I do. And yeah, we're rocking and rolling. Did I see the Destiny 3 thing? Yes. Yeah. Let me pull it up here. I guess we can touch on this new sort of segment. So this like just dropped this morning. Destiny 3 is in extremely early, thank you for the pop-up, early development at Bungie, a leaker claims. A well-known Destiny leaker, so this is somebody who's done this type of coverage of Bungie stuff before, has leaked that Destiny 3 has entered extremely early development, giving fans hope after years of waiting. This couldn't have come at a better time, as the company is struggling to build out its latest game, of course, Marathon, which itself has actually received an update. Some of you guys might have even received invitations to this thing, but basically, Marathon is having another play test that I think is taking place over the course of mid-December. And it is also strictly under NDA, so nobody will be allowed to talk about it, but no doubt people will, and we'll find out some stuff about it. But they are still progressing, and they're trying to tie this together, and wrap it up. I think what their hope is now is that they can come in with Marathon at the precise moment that Arc Raiders is kind of trailing off and people are getting bored with it. That's at least the hope for them, and that they can kind of scratch that itch or offer people an alternative, at least for a little bit. But who knows how that goes. At the same time all of this is going on, though, reportedly they are working on a sequel to Destiny. Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. They described it as being in extremely early development. Some of you may have seen the tweet earlier this afternoon that mentioned that. We have been sitting on the info for a few weeks and wanted to wait to talk about it, seeing as it is in such an early state, and it just sucks to see others post about it carelessly for free internet points. We plan to share more in the coming months as we wait on larger scale things to develop and take shape. Sit tight. Live service games tend to take like a decade. Okay, like they take a long time to build. I would not expect this to come anytime soon. Okay, like I wouldn't. So yes, it might be very, very early development. It almost certainly is a PlayStation 6 game and is coming well after Marathon comes and either outperforms or underperforms, who knows, but it's a very long ways off. So anybody who's like, oh, they're gonna expedite that and put that out right after Marathon, no, that's not really how this works. I'm not surprised, though. I mean, this is one of those that kind of passes the gut check, because they got to make up that $3.5 billion price tag somehow. Like, somehow. Everybody knows that was probably the worst single acquisition in the history of the games industry. $3.6 to $3.7 billion for a company that has missed revenue targets by as much as 50 to 100%, depending on the quarter we're looking at. And literally, since they've been bought, I don't think they have made Sony a penny. Which ain't good. That's bad. It's bad. It's not what you want. So they got to make it up somehow, and apparently they're going to try to make it up by pushing for a Destiny 3. Who knows how that works, frankly. I would not get my hopes up, but that's reportedly what they're working on. So time will tell. Time will tell. Lost money? Yeah, I mean, at some point, I do think multiple things are true. I think that Bungie executives greenlit a bunch of different projects and had a bunch of stuff cooking. They had a bunch of pots on the stove so that they could go and say, we have all this stuff coming out. And if it's even half as successful as Destiny 2, we're going to make, I mean, we're worth $4 or $5 billion. I mean, we're worth a lot. Look at all the stuff we're doing. 5 big AAA games, and we're working on like a movie and mobile games and stuff. Easy money. And then they buy them, and it turns out a lot of that stuff needs to be canceled because it's crap, or needs to be reworked, or Destiny is slowly dying and they don't really have any plans for building it up. And so all of it was kind of fake, but it's the same exact thing that happened with like ZeniMax when they were shopping around trying to find a buyer in 2018, where they greenlit a ton of projects, a lot of live service projects, everything from Redfall, for example, all the way to Fallout 76. They greenlit all these projects to try and appear more valuable to a potential buyer. They got bought for a top dollar amount, but all those games were kind of fake and amorphous and just not great. The valuation needs to be studied. Well, and that's where like we can point to Bungie executives for exaggerating what they were doing and kind of fudging a little bit of it to get a higher price point. But the blame ultimately still lands on the people, like the very capable business people at Sony, who looked over this deal and still thought it was worth doing. And what else do we know about that era of PlayStation? They were willing to throw money at pretty much anything so long as it had live service next to it. Like Concord, hundreds of millions of dollars on Concord. Even if it wasn't 400 million, the conservative estimate is with the studio purchase and all the money they spent on it and with advertising and marketing and everything, it still was at least a $200 million project on something any one of us could have looked at and been like, nope. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. So I have very little sympathy. I think they were meant for each other. Like you ended up with Bungie being toxic and exaggerating how much they were worth. And then PlayStation was so gung-ho and irrationally dedicated to live service stuff that they ended up overspending like crazy. And I don't feel that bad, frankly. I don't feel that bad. COVID number of players blinded these companies. I do think that was part of it, is that they looked at those numbers and thought this is the new normal. It was quite short-sighted. I think it was also that Jim Ryan came in and there was a bit of like a shakiness within PlayStation's executive headquarters where they were looking at it and they were like, at that time, again, rewind the clocks to like 2020, 2021, 22, Microsoft was coming in and spending tens of billions of dollars on acquisitions. I think they seriously were fearing that if they didn't come in and buy something, that Microsoft would just gobble up everybody that was for sale. And so they thought, we'll go after Bungie. They have very successful live service games. We'll buy them before Microsoft can. But I don't think Microsoft would have paid $3 to $4 billion for Bungie. Like, I don't think that makes sense. So, because you got to remember, Bungie was not like this big publicly traded company. When you're a big publicly traded company, the benefit is that the market has priced your company. The market has done the research, done the digging to figure out what you're worth. And sometimes it's overhyped. Sometimes it trades on speculation, on crazy growth potential, things like that. But in general, the market has priced it. With companies like Bungie, was it Firewalk, the guys behind Concord, or ZeniMax? These were all privately held companies. So they had to do all the digging and pricing themselves to figure out how much these companies were worth. And there's a lot more question marks around there. But anyway, they're allegedly working on it. We won't see it anytime soon. And even when we see it, I don't know if it will be enough to help them and save them, but time will tell. Time will tell. I'm watching Romeo on the little camera I have for the backyard. He is so freaking cute. He's doing this like trot thing across the yard. He's just having the time of his life. He's a hunting dog, so he's okay in the cold. He just like doesn't have any body fat, so he can't be out there for too long. But he like loves just going around sniffing stuff. He's a sniffer dog, you know, like smelling stuff. Who really wants another Sly Cooper game when you can have 10 canceled live action multiplayer games? Exactly. Thank you. Finally, someone says it. Did it snow? No, I think our first snow is expected on Saturday. I think. Right now it's just cold, but I believe the forecast says Saturday will get snow. And it'll be his first ever snow. He's never seen snow before in his life because he was born in March. So he's going to eat it up, I think. Literally. Probably. Yeah. It's going to be very cute. Imagine being some of those companies that delayed their games because of GTA 6, only to find GTA 6 got delayed to their game's release date. Literally, dude. Yeah, it's happened with a lot of different studios, I think. I don't think it's an isolated thing. But I do think it means that we're going to start to see some very, very locked in release dates in the next, well, honestly, probably at the Game Awards. But I think we'll see a lot of that because now companies are pretty confident that GTA 6 is coming in November and not moving. I've said it before. I think the odds of them delaying from May or from fall 24 5 to May 26, the odds of that were like 45-50%. The odds of them delaying from May to November of next year were like 15%. The odds of them delaying from November of next year into like May of 2027, I think the odds of that are like 1 or 2%. I think it's very, very, very unlikely. I'd be shocked, but time will tell. Time will tell. Time will tell. Okay, happy Thanksgiving. Yes, happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys too. If you are in the States, ready to celebrate tomorrow. Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. We have a few things to chat about today that we'll do. It's not going to be a crazy long stream or anything, but there were a couple of little tidbits I thought would be interesting. We could tackle and discuss. AC. Did you guys see the new crossover thing they're doing for Attack on Titan? They just did this crossover event. It's only like a 30-minute mission, I think.
A monster that wields death on a scale you've never seen. We must rescue Gawain before Albrecht and his fanatics force him to shift and destroy everything you've ever known.
And if Gawain succumbs, he'll have a Titan.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. Scooter, thank you. Loxy, Jesus. Dude, is him an eminent. Loxy just gifted 20 subs over on Twitch. Happy Thanksgiving from the EU. Thank you, my friend. My God. Well, everybody over on Twitch who just got a sub gifted to them, get your booty over in the Discord. Connect your Twitch account to your Discord account. Give it like a day. You should get automatically invited to the Discord server, okay? Do it. Do it now. Welcome, everybody. Thank you again. Very, very generous. Very, very generous. Thank you, guys. Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy generous. Thank you, my friend. Golly. I wish I had something more elaborate to do or say for that as a thank you, but my goodness. Here, you get a whip. There you go. Let's see. What was I gonna pull up that totally broke my brain? Oh, I know. Where's the clip? Did I not save the clip? AC Shadows. No, crap. There's basically like there's a lot of like bro. AC Landmarks. Okay, I'm gonna say it. We can't have inconsistency like this anymore. Having Valley of Memory last week, a game with superb mocap and storytelling, compared to this abomination out in AC Shadows. It's so inconsistent. Please prioritize mocap and storytelling. Yeah, this is part of the crossover thing they're doing. It's a little crazy. It's a little insane. Yeah. That's fair. Oh, Romeo realized how cold he is. Yeah, for people not believing this.
You want a meal, monster? Come and get it! must hurry.
Like, okay. I'll preface it by saying video games are hard. Development is hard. I get it. This also is a free update. To be fair, free update. So like beggars can't be choosers. It is free. So it's you get what you pay for, I guess. But I think, like AC Landmarks is pointing out, the frustration is that like last week we got, or this week, it's a blur already, we got Valley of Memory. And if you don't know what Valley of Memory is, basically it was a DLC, free DLC, that dropped for AC Mirage and featured all sorts of brand new motion captured cutscenes. It featured overhauls to parkour, to social, or to like some of the stealth mechanics. It was like a pretty expansive update for free that again really prioritized production value and really prioritized presentation and stuff. Like those subtle little things of the forehead and the brows furrowing with the small smirk. Those little details are what you get with actual mocap and facial capture, okay? These little touches from the actor of seeing hope. And then the small smirk. It's a tiny detail, but it matters. It matters. And then you see this. Like, I get it's Attack on Titan. They do like the big two thing. I get that. But there is definitely a gap in quality. Let's just say it's a free crossover event. I understand that. I get it. I should be happy with what I get. I understand that point. But the other thing was also free. And this is something like Ubisoft specifically has struggled with for years, is this like disconnect between studios, where you could have a studio like Quebec that with AC Odyssey did a phenomenal like cinematic camera angle thing. And I think for years they've actually been slowly getting rid of their mocap infrastructure at Quebec. It seems that way, at least. Supidio, this one. Because even back in the day, this is a 2018 video game, and I feel like these side quests, like the motion capture, not even motion capture, the animation quality, the vocal capture, all of that, I feel like this is all better done than it is even in AC Shadows, which is weird. I don't understand that. I brought it up in my review where I'm like, I feel like they took steps backwards from 2018 where they had all these things built out, and then in AC Shadows, it's like everybody's talking while underwater and also having taken 5 fistfuls of some sort of laxative. Like, it's just really, really weird. But I feel like, you know, this is kind of an artifact of what they've been doing for years, where Quebec, who did Odyssey and did Shadows, I feel like they slowly got rid of their infrastructure to do mocap, and everything was systemic, like you can see here. And then that, when it echoes over to stuff like this, it just doesn't work as well. Oh my God. I don't know. I greatly prefer motion captured stuff. I understand this crossover probably is not for me, but frankly, like, what are we doing? Even just this, like, they didn't motion capture or facial capture anything. So it's just like a hand keyed thing of like open his mouth while he yells. Like literally a cow, dude. Roar. I'm Alex the lion. Roar. It's just weird. Like, okay. So there's a game I've told you guys about a lot, which is Where Winds Meet. Where Winds Meet is kind of crazy, but it is a free game that also has it's got like a mobile game port. So it's also technically a mobile game, okay? And this is the production quality in that game. This is something you can download for free today and play, monetized only with cosmetics. Okay? So this is also a free thing. It's a multi-dimensional boss fight where as the boss fight goes on, you flip between the red and white dimension. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And this production quality, I feel, is what's the word? What's the word? Better? I think it's better. Superior. Not hilarious. You know, like, again, it's free post-launch content. I know that's going to be the counter. People are like, it's free post-launch content. You know, what are you complaining about? It's not for you. I understand. The reason it's not for me is because it looks like this. Okay? I'm not into Attack on Titan. If this were badass and like really high effort, it could be. But this, like, again, reaffirms the idea that like the consistency is not there at all. Bordeaux is doing these like handcrafted motion captured things, and I understand they got outside investment for it. I understand the budgets on these two things are night and day. That is like a whole new basically expansion, whereas this is like a 30-minute quest line that they threw together very quickly. So I'm sure that there's many reasons for the gap, but you know, my general rule of thumb is if you can't do something well, sometimes it's better not to do it at all. And like, fam, I've met a lot of the people at Quebec. They're very nice, very talented devs. Guys. What are we doing? What are we doing? Again, it's so night and day, which is what's, I think, the most jarring, is that we just got this from another team in the same franchise, also for free. And then we get that other thing that looks sub-free mobile game at this point. Literally, there are free mobile games that have higher production quality than some of the updates we're getting for AC Shadows. And that's a game you also happen to pay $70 for. You know? So, anyway, apparently Shadow of Memory is Valley of Memory is very, very good. The people who have played it that I've chatted with said it's really very, very well done. I've not had the chance to play it. We've been drowning in work the last 2 weeks or so, but I do plan on probably jumping into it this weekend, I think. Giving it a shot. And it's free, so why not? Why the hell not? Why the gosh darn heck not, you know? Okay, real quick, I'm gonna go bring Romeo in because he's outside and he got cold, and now he's He's just like scampering in the backyard, but I can tell he's cold. So I'm going to go bring him back inside. In the meantime, I'm going to show you some clips of Assassin's Creed combat from the old games compared to some of the new games. I want you to look at this. I'll be gone for maybe like 90 seconds. So just bear with me. But when I come back, I want to have a little debate with all of you over whether the old combat is superior to the new combat. Okay, so take this in. This is what we're looking at. Tell me what you think. Okay, I'll be back in like a minute. I just have to bring him in. Okay, enjoy the chair react. I'll be... Okay, I'm back. And then we compare it to like Mirage.
All right, I have this.
I think you get the point. Elijah, do you wait to build your PC until RAM prices go back down? To be clear, the like DRAM prices will affect pretty much everything. It's also VRAM pricing. It'll affect anything related to memory at this point. So it's only going to get worse. And it's going to affect everything. So it's not just that RAM went up 200%. It's also that everything else will also go up by 40, 50, 60, 70%. So my personal guess would be it's not going to go down anytime soon, but it's also going to affect everything else. So unfortunately, there's not really a great answer of like whether you should wait or whatever, because the only way RAM prices go back down is if there's more supply with new manufacturing, which probably is not going to happen because any new manufacturing is just going to go to manufacturing stuff for the data centers where the real money is. So I don't think that happens. And the only other way for it to go down is if demand drops. And the only way demand drops is if the enterprise guys stop buying up data centers worth of memory for everything they're doing. And that's probably not going to happen. Literally, like yesterday, I think the White House announced what they're calling the Manhattan Project of AI. So like literally the White House is going to be bankrolling some of this server infrastructure spending. And they have more money than you do, or I do. So my guess, call me a cynic, my guess is that pricing is not going to drop anytime soon. So yeah, how many years? Like, this is something that probably happens for like 2 to 4 years, would be my guess. Yeah, I don't think it's dropping anytime soon. Anytime soon. And it will not just affect PCs. Anybody who's going like, yeah, consoles, bro, it's not affecting anything. Or it's not affecting any of that stuff right now because they have sort of a backlog of hardware that they've stockpiled. That's at least Sony's case. Apparently Microsoft didn't do that, and Microsoft did not stockpile anything, which is why it looks like Xbox prices could go up again before the end of the year, which would be crazy. But it will eventually hit consoles once they sell through all of that stockpiled inventory. Until the AI bubble bursts. Yeah. What I would also say is that if/when the AI bubble bursts, the economy will go into free fall, and building a PC will probably not be on the to-do list anymore. So you could wait for that, but if that happens, there will be bigger things to do than buying a PC, you know? Yeah. PS5 just went down $100. Yeah, for Black Friday they did list it. Apparently they have a massive stockpile that they've been building up this year, and so they are resistant to the memory shortages and price hikes. So they should be good. Some are reporting as long as 6 months because they have so much stockpiled, but we'll see. Tucker, thank you for the 5. Remember that old scam game identity? Scam game identity? Scam game identity. Oh, it's called Identity. I just looked it up on Steam. It's still up after 6 years, no updates. How does that happen? I don't know. You think Steam would step in and do something? That's crazy. Kaito, thank you for the 9 months. Old combat looked better and the new combat feels better. Old combat was mainly wiggling your sword and pressing a button at the right time. Yeah, it was rock, paper, scissors. So the reason I guess I can lead into this real quick. Let's see. Owen Knight, thank you.
At Owen Knight donated £10 through Super Chat. It's not worth waiting for a bubble to burst. It's being propped up by Nvidia. Your best outside of sales is to look at B-grade stock or bundle deals. Even a pre-built might be a better option.
Yeah, pre-builts with massive discounts for volume might save you some money. Micro Center stores typically have really good deals on stuff, but I think unfortunately it's just kind of like the new normal, is that because of the massive demand and the limited supply, it drives prices up. Economics 101, and there's not really anything to change that equation in the near term at all. So I just don't see prices dropping. I just don't see how it would happen. Yeah. Unfortunately. And it will eventually hit everything. I mean, it's going to hit phones. It'll hit big phones like Apple. Apple orders enough memory in one fell swoop for iPhones that they can kind of brute force their way in, because they can be like, no, we're ordering so much and our orders are worth so much, you're going to give us a good deal, and they can get away with it that way. The reason it affects consumer grade electronics is because the volume is not crazy high, which there's no real solution to that. Nvidia probably is going to be okay. Like Nvidia GPUs, for example, AMD GPUs, they should be okay, at least in the short term. But yeah, I mean, it's going to affect all sorts of stuff. It's going to be a big deal eventually. But I'm sure a lot of big manufacturers, people like Tim Cook and Jensen and those guys, I'm sure they're gonna hop on the phone with like Trump and be like, hey, can you do something, like threaten to tariff companies that are price hiking or something. Like try to do something strong army to lower prices. They'll figure it out. Yeah, or just download more RAM. Exactly, Jimmy. Exactly. You can just Google it. Yeah. Yeah. Elijah, thank you for the 5. Do you think a gaming PC is still a good investment if it's significantly more expensive than the same build was a month ago? I have a PS5 Pro. Well, specifically, it's going to be affecting primarily expensive PCs, like higher end PCs. It's always been a want, not a need. Thank you, TB. It's always been a want, not a need. So it's still a luxury item. It's just a much more expensive luxury item now. You know?
Hello all. I'm new to the channel and the fantasy RPG space in general, so can someone please fill me on who Todd Howard is and why he's funny? I want to join the cool club. Also, thoughts on Stalker 2?
Stalker 2, very baller, hardcore. Not for everybody, but if you like immersive exploration games, it can be a very good time. As for who Todd is, who isn't Todd? Todd is everywhere and everyone. Todd is the great unifier. He is the one that makes everything work. He is the one that announces early and delivers late. He is all.
Super chat. On the subject of Ubisoft, you're always going to get a crappy product if you treat your staff like you're applying thumbscrews to them. That's why I can't support Ubisoft.
I'd be interested in hearing specifics. As I said, I've met a good number of Ubisoft employees, and there are a couple of instances where they have expressed dissatisfaction for sure. Specifically, I've literally never met a Ubisoft employee who's like gung-ho openly about the CEO. They might be like, yeah, well, you know, I can't get into that stuff because I work here, but I've never met an employee who was like all on board with the leadership. It seems to me like everybody that works at Ubisoft is like, oh God, what did they do now? Like, I think everybody is aware. Okay. Which how could you not be, but still. But beyond that, some of the people I've met at these studios and stuff, like they have coffee shops within the studio. They work from home 3 days out of the week or more. Like, some of the people I've met are like, oh, this is very cushy. Like, we're very comfy where we're at. Could we make more? Sure, but that's always going to be the case. So who knows? I'm sure there's plenty of studios where they're miserable as well, but they also have 20,000 employees. So you'd expect to find some also positive stories and some negative stories as well, but they're freaking massive. Todd is 16 times the developer with 16 times the detail. He is truly. Yeah. I've been playing Odyssey. It's certainly overhated. Dude, I agree. I think Odyssey gets way too much hate. Is it a great Assassin's Creed game? No. But is it a good fantasy adventure game? Yes. All day, every day. And I will die on that hill. Cancel me. I don't care. Cancel me. Now it's been long enough. People are coming around and are actually like agreeing with it and are like, yeah, no, Odyssey's great, which always happens. Like, there was also this video that went viral. I think it was a few months ago. It was like, yes, Ubisoft made this game. Yeah, 1 year ago. Million views, okay? Million views. And it's literally just clips from AC Origins, like running around, footsteps in the sand, coming across some of the mirages. The Locust! What have you done? And the reason I bring this up is because I feel as though every 7 years, 6, 7 years, we run into a thing where the community goes back and is like, actually, that was really good. Yes, I said it was horrible at the time, but now I love it. And I've tried to be consistent. And there's times where I change my mind for sure, but I've always been very clear. Origins, I think, has a lot more gameplay complexity than people remember or give it credit. Not just with like AI complexities with NPCs and all sorts of stuff, but also just with things like this that we're seeing. The mirages in the desert were super cool. Climbing the pyramids and all that. I'm a fan. Odyssey also way underrated as far as like fantasy adventure games are concerned. It's massive. Like the main complaint people have is that it's too big, and that there's like too much, you know, which is a fair frustration, I think, to certainly have with many games. But compared to the types of stuff we're getting now, where it's like the same repeated missions 15,000 times that are totally soulless, I'd take Odyssey any day of the week. But now people are kind of spinning back the other way, and now Origins is peak. We're also seeing it with like AC Unity, where people are looking back on AC Unity saying that was super underrated. And it's like, bro, you guys, not saying it was unjustified, but like the community crucified Unity when it launched. Like, they massacred this game. And it deserved it because it ran like crap. But let's not rewrite history, okay? It was not always a masterpiece.
Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7 was a registered 6 offender.
Okay, I had not heard that one before. That one's new. Hadn't heard that one before. Jesus. Sorry, I have the sense of humor of an 11-year-old. But yeah, I don't want people to just rewrite history, okay? I agree, Unity had a lot of amazing parts, and my personal frustration is that I feel as though Unity was a technical disaster. Ubisoft panicked when it did poorly, and they decided to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and they kind of, everything about it they threw away. Even though there were good ideas and good things within it, they threw all of it out, which I think did set the series back a little bit and set the stage for like the RPG trilogy that would come after. But nowadays people are looking back on it and they're like, oh, actually this is amazing. I guess we were too harsh. I'm like, no, we weren't too harsh. To be very clear, we were not too harsh.
TB_Sully donated $1. Are you more or less worried for the release of Cyberpunk 2 since it's on Unreal Engine 5?
Am I more or less worried about it? I would not say I'm more or less worried. I will be skeptical. I will be skeptical of the game when it is revealed. And when they start like pushing it, because last time was rough, let's just say, but also I mean, we all know how Unreal Engine games run, so I will be cautious. I will be very cautious. I would not immediately get super hyped. But the same is true for The Witcher 4. I think actually, conveniently, Witcher 4 should, in theory, give us a much better idea of what Cyberpunk 2 is going to be like. Specifically because of that. I think like we'll see how The Witcher 4 runs, and then we will get a feeling for how Cyberpunk will run. Probably work better. Probably, I think. But yeah, I think going back to the combat system, this whole thing, we can circle back to this later too, but this whole thing with the paired animation system, especially in Syndicate, it was brutal. It was really brutal. But I also think that there's some rewriting of history. The reason they changed it from this to the hitbox system in Origins was because people complained so much about this combat system. You know? And now people are going back and be like, well, for the Black Flag remake, I hope they go back and keep that combat system. I'm like, bro, they changed it because everybody hated it. Like, yes, looking back, it's very flashy and it is brutal and crazy, but it basically is just rock, paper, scissors, where you get to see what the other player is going to do. And then you do that for like 5 minutes at a time in these combat sequences. And it's just kind of button mashing, you know? It was very janky at times. Yeah, exactly. People, again, have a very short-term memory, it seems, and or at least block things out where they just forget. They're like, no, the reason they changed it was because of the constant complaints about it. You know, like people constantly complain. And it's not to say that now Mirage's combat is great. Mirage's combat is not great. It is a stealth game, and they stripped out a lot of the melee combat stuff that they had in like Origins or Odyssey. They stripped that out because they wanted to force you to use stealth. They wanted melee combat to be clunky. So I would say pointing to Mirage instead of showing like Odyssey, skipping from Syndicate straight to Mirage is not the best comparison, I'd say. This is like the worst possible way to frame the argument of modern combat versus new or versus old combat. But it again is another frustration of mine, is just the sort of very short-sighted, short-term memory of like forgetting why these things were changed. It's like, it's because people hated it. Like, if we all know Ubisoft, if they can keep doing the same exact thing nonstop, they will. They will. They changed it because people were so upset about it and hated it so much, you know? Loxy also says, I think Syndicate deserved better. I do too, man. I do too. The music in Syndicate is still goated to this day.
Attend the tale of Maxwell Roth. He sought the footlights like a moth, his sense of timing never off until he opted to collaborate
With a hooded reprobate.
The blighter and assassin made a deadly double bill. Jokes, 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 make 'em laugh until they choke. Fairly slay 'em in the aisles, maidens fair and princes charming. Thrills, 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 dashing feats and bloody spills, and I guarantee you'll never see the ending coming.
Dude, this whole soundtrack is a bop. It's a bop.
The curtain rose, the scene was set, they danced a murderous duet, and much deserving blood was let up to. The scene wherein they disagreed on who should live and who should bleed, and Maxwell Rothy then received a
Very bad review.
Jokes, 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 and there's daggers and there's cloaks, but behind the scenes the leading players differ on the plot. Laugh, laugh, laugh at the dandy's new red scarf. Now 8 shows a week to Beelzebub is his eternal lot. Jokes, 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 make 'em laugh until they choke. Fairly slay 'em in the aisles, maidens fair and princes charming. Thrills, 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 dashing feats and bloody spills, and I guarantee you'll never see the ending coming.
So good. It's a vibe, man. It's a vibe. Oh, you know, it's also a vibe. This guy. Doesn't he just instill confidence? Doesn't he just instill confidence? I look at this guy and I go, I want to give him a lot of money. You know? You don't feel that? What the hell is even that? Who is this? I'm glad you asked, Melissa. News, I mean, sort of. So we just had an anniversary a few days back. The 20th anniversary of the Xbox 360 launch. 20 years ago. Let that settle in. 20 years ago, okay? It was a generation that set up Xbox for amazing success. I mean, nowadays it's a foreign concept, but the 360 was so successful that it, and the PS3 was kind of a disaster cluster, that it really was at the top of its game. I mean, they were dominating through the whole 360 era. And Then came 2013, their chance to like actually go and kick some booty and really lock in their position. And as you can see, this is a post from Larry Herb. 20 years ago today, Xbox 360 launched. The power was never the console. It was you. You camped out at midnight, built lasting communities, and showed us what gaming could mean. You made that generation matter and endure for 2 decades, which is true. It's a big moment. And then Retro Gaming Grinch tweeted this, and it was all destroyed in the space of 1 hour with a picture of a man who looks vaguely like a Keebler elf, gesturing towards a gaming console. Or is that a cable box? Or both? Stunning. Stunning. And this made me think of so many things, but there is a video that was put together by Zach Lilypad, as you can see here, simply titled Xbox One, the worst generation to lose. And I think that this is, important to remember because those who forget history are doomed to repeat it indeed. But it's also important to remember how things can always somehow be worse. The launch of the Xbox One was such an unmitigated disaster that it basically set up Xbox for an entire generation of mediocrity and missed opportunities. And it's something that they never really recovered from, which is wild, but they never really did. At the 360 era, they were at the peak. They were considered the front runners. And they managed to go from the front runners leading into the generation to losing the generation by like 2-1. The PS4 outperformed the Xbox One. And now, in the year of our Lord 2025, Xbox's consoles are being bought in like laughably low numbers. The console war, by all accounts, is basically over and done. And Xbox now is pushing towards going full third-party publisher and kind of foregoing the whole idea of being a dedicated platform. It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But what exactly happened? How did this go? Well, let's see the story as told again by the one and only Zach Lilypad. Let's see what happened.
Xbox One is not really in that conversation, selling a when we talk about the least successful video game consoles of all time, the Xbox One is not really in that conversation, selling a respectable 58 million units. But as the years have gone on since that console's life cycle, it's clear some of the events that took place have left a lasting scar on the Xbox brand as a whole. In 2023, head of Xbox Phil Spencer said the Xbox One generation was the worst console generation to lose. In today's video, I want to take a look back at the Xbox One to figure out what exactly happened and what would lead to such a brutally honest quote from Phil Spencer. Microsoft was feeling...
It's true. I think it was the worst generation to lose. Especially and specifically because of one market shift that happened during that era, which was the move towards digital libraries. All of platform building is about getting your customers entrenched in your ecosystem such that they can't leave. Because if you have your entire life built up on Apple devices, you have the Apple Watch, you have the headphones, you use AirPods, you have the phone, you have a MacBook that you use Apple TV, all of your shows are on Apple TV, all of your music is in Apple Music, all of this stuff. It's all tied to this ecosystem. It makes it really, really hard to switch to Android, right? Even if that flip phone is really cool, even if the folding phone is really cool, your whole life is on that platform. So you don't want to leave. They got their hooks in you. And the way Apple does it, it's not just with hardware where like literally you're buying products in their ecosystem so you don't want to lose them, but also digitally by building up your libraries, by building up your accounts, even weird social stigma stuff where it's like iPhones are cool in a lot of high schools or colleges, where like if they have the green bubble versus blue bubble, that signifies a gap in your social status. It's cringy, it's stupid, but that is a thing. It is a thing. And it's all very intentional. It's by design, certainly. Very, very much the case. Thank you, Katakuris. Thank you for the 10 for your next VRAM. Love your content. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, gotta start saving now. Just upgraded the PC. Won't have to do it again for another few years, but I'm gotta start saving now. Tell you what. Thank you. So the reason I think that this was the worst generation to lose was because in this era is when the shift from physical media to digital media took place. Gamers went from buying 10%, 5 to 10% of their games digitally to buying 90% of their games digitally. Especially going into COVID. Once COVID hit, everybody started buying games digitally. And when your whole library is digital, it's a lot harder to move. It just is. Because if I own my whole game library on the PlayStation Network, no matter how cool or good of a value the Xbox is or a Steam machine is or something, I'm still walking away from all of that, you know? Makes it really, really hard to justify giving up on all of that to move over to a different set of hardware. Whereas when it was physical, you could literally, and I remember friends who did this, where they took their stacks of games into GameStop, sold all the games, and then they used that money to buy many of the same games on the new console, on the new platform when they switched over. Digitally, you can't do that.
Pretty good after the Xbox 360 generation, and they had every right to. With just their second ever Xbox console on the market, they were able to go toe-to-toe with industry juggernaut PlayStation. And for most of the generation, they were even able to outperform them. Not only did the Xbox 360 sell extremely well, it is also one of the most beloved and fondly remembered consoles of all time. With its iconic lineup of games and innovative focus on multiplayer gaming and social features, the 360 helped truly establish Xbox as one of the big three, right alongside PlayStation and Nintendo. As they geared up for the reveal of their next console, all they really...
Dude, I miss cringy E3 presentations so bad. I deeply have contempt for Krobycat and his videos, even though I love those videos, specifically because I think they shamed game developers out of having cringy E3 presentations. Dude, they were great. Kids these days will never understand the fun and the joy that could be found in a really, really cringy E3 presentation. There's just nothing like it. Nothing like it. And now we don't have any of that. Jesse Wellens cringe.
What up, guys? Thank you for having me, EA. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Jesse Wellens, and I am a YouTube creator. So I am here to talk about Need for Speed Payback. If you guys didn't know, Need for Speed Payback, yeah, it's a great game. But all right, all set aside, I'm a YouTube creator. Need for Speed Payback, it's coming out. I got my boy Marcus, executive producer here. He is the producer in the game. Thank you, Nick, for having me.
I'm sorry. It's so good. It's so good. There's so many moments like this, dude. Ubisoft used to be the kings of this.
As far as for some of you that can't attend the entire
Konami 2010.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. 今日は
Dude.
Welcome back to the Bethesda E3 showcase. #DE3.
We need that emote. Hold on.
The Bethesda E3 showcase.
Todd, what are you doing, Todd? Praise be, praise be. That's him bestowing blessings on us. Oh man, I really deeply miss E3 cringe compilations. And now I don't think we get them because E3's dead, for one. And two, I think I think we bullied them out of doing those types of presentations. And it's too bad, man. They were great. They were really, really great. And now we won't get those ever again, unfortunately. But maybe one day we will. Anyway, continuing.
Really had to do was build off of that momentum. Rumors first started swirling about this new console around May 2011, commonly being referred to as the Xbox 720 at that time. For the most part, the rumors are what you would expect to see from any new console that we don't know much about. There were the tame, run-of-the-mill rumors about how much more powerful the console would be than its predecessor. Then there were of course the absurdities you would see thrown out there, such as one rumor that claimed the console would have a screen on the controller, similar to Nintendo's Wii U. While these promises of more power alongside some wildly made-up rumors were to be expected, there were some other rumors floating out there that were much more concerning. Talk of Xbox 720 not supporting used games or requiring the use of the controversial Kinect accessory were heard frequently. Additionally, there was a common rumor stating that the console would be always on, or in other words, would require a constant internet connection to function, even when using features that would typically require no internet at all. Now, if there's one thing gamers hate, it's an always online requirement, and I can't blame them for that one bit. Around this time of 2012 and 2013, we saw a few different games try this, and it usually ended up pretty horrifically. The well-documented launch problems that plagued always online games in this era, like Diablo 3 or SimCity 2013, had left gamers scarred. And so the thought of having an entire console built around this was utterly terrifying. Amidst the panic of these always online rumors, we reached the first major misstep of this Xbox generation. Xbox hadn't commented on any of these rumors until one day a man by the name of Adam Orth, who at the time was creative director at Microsoft Game Studios, decided to send out a tweet. In his now infamous tweet, he stated, "Sorry, I don't get the drama around having an always on console. Every device now is always on. That's the world we live in. Hashtag deal with it."
Telling gamers to hashtag deal with it. It's a choice. It's a choice. Can you imagine somebody doing that like today? You don't like this game? Hashtag deal with it. Like, bro, it's a bad idea. And I think that this is one of those fascinating things about the games industry specifically, is that the gaming community doesn't tolerate things. And when I say gaming community, I should be more precise. The gaming community, I'm not including like mobile gamers, okay? Maybe that's impractical or improper of me. But I mean in like console gamers, PC gamers. That's mainly what I'm talking about, okay? Those types of gamers, they do not tolerate things that other communities within entertainment tolerate. They just don't. And then you'll see executives come in and expect them to tolerate it, and then they're shocked when it doesn't go over well. You know, with like the, you all have phones, don't you? You can see an executive sitting in a boardroom going, everybody has a phone. So these people who like Diablo, we're going to give them a game they can play anywhere with any of their friends because everybody has a phone. Like, you can see how an executive would arrive at that conclusion, but it's because they fundamentally don't understand the community, right? Or in the same vein, where like they'll look at sports games and they'll be like, oh, well, you guys watch these basketball games that have constant ads, or you'll watch a football game, an American football game, and they it's like an hour of game time because it's 4 quarters of 15 minutes apiece, but each broadcast takes between 3 and 4 hours. The rest are usually filled with ads. There's like 2 to 3 hours of ads in every football game. So why don't we put just like 20 minutes of ads into your Madden game? Then we make money. You're more immersed because you're watching ads in your football game that you're playing on your console. It'll be like it'll be like a really cool meta thing or something. And you can see how they would think that they could get away with that, but it doesn't go over well. It does not go over well. You know? And it happens in so many instances. They point to the mobile gaming community and they go, they're okay with pay to win stuff. They're okay with gotcha pulls to pay to win. What do you mean you guys don't? You're also gamers, because they don't understand the distinction that you can get away with some stuff over here. You can't get away with it over here. And I think what happened is that the people that were running Microsoft at the time thought that they could run it like they ran other segments of their business, or like other people ran other markets. And in the case of Xbox, I mean, it ended up being pretty disastrous, because this guy, Donald Allen Matrick, he became the CEO or he was president of interactive entertainment business at Microsoft. And so he was in charge of this whole 360 to Xbox One transition, in charge of the Kinect and all of that stuff. And it ended up being just like a total disaster. But he previously worked at like EA before going to Microsoft. And he thought some of the stuff that they could do to strong arm people in those games, they could do on the console scale. And you just can't.
As you can imagine, this tweet sent gamers into an absolute frenzy. Not only did Orth seemingly confirm the feared always online requirement, but his snarky and dismissive tone was especially infuriating. As fans tried to voice their concerns to Orth, he chose to double down.
Yeah, this also, like, the doubling down never really works in the gaming space. Sorry, I don't get the drama between around having an always online console. Every device now is always online. That's the world we live in. Manveer replied, "Did you learn nothing from Diablo 3 or SimCity? You know some people's internet goes out, right? Deal with it is a shitty reason." Orthy says, "Electricity goes out too. You've lived in LA, San Fran, Seattle, very connected places. Try living in Janesville, Wisconsin, or Blacksburg, Virginia. Why on earth would I live there?" This like contempt for their own customers. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy. And I'm sure he's going to bring it up, but you'll probably hear it because at one point, Don Matrick also said similar things where, like, for example, I think it was Jeff Keighley himself, where Jeff Keighley asked, like, so what about servicemen and women who are deployed overseas and can't connect their Xbox One to an internet connection because, you know, they're stationed overseas, like fighting for your country. What about them? And he goes, well, we have an offline device for them. It's called the Xbox 360. Should have thought of that before becoming a soldier. Like, it's crazy. Like, again, so freaking out of touch. The idea that you would reply to somebody being like, hey, you have people that might want to buy your console in Janesville, Wisconsin, or Blacksburg, Virginia. He's like, why would I live there? Trash. Like, it's crazy. Unbelievable.
What would happen if my internet went out? Well, the electricity can go out too. What if I live in an area without good internet accessibility? Well, you shouldn't live there. Orth tried to defend these comments by saying he was talking to a friend, and these statements were meant...
Yeah, your console doesn't turn on unless it's connected to the internet. What should I do about that? Should I just go buy a PlayStation? No, you should move. Like, move and then buy my console.
As a joke towards him, not as an insult to others. But with prior tweets coming a few hours earlier using the same talking points, which were not directed at that individual.
Yeah, same thing. Sometimes the electricity goes out. I will not purchase a vacuum cleaner. The mobile reception in the area I live in is spotty and unreliable. I will not buy a mobile phone. This fundamentally misunderstands the point people are raising, okay? This is a device which doesn't have to be online. Yes, it requires electricity. And if the internet or if the electricity goes out, you can't use it. True. But it doesn't have to be always online. And this, like, I think they think either they're outsmarting you or you're too stupid to realize what it is. It is not always online, or it wasn't planned to be always online, out of the goodness of their heart or some desire to have better connectivity to increase your experience or something. It was being done to try and specifically fight against pirating, and because they wanted to be able to eventually serve you things like ads, which they were already experimenting with at the time. And so this was never about, like, well, it just has to be always online. And so, like, if the internet drops, it doesn't work. So it's the same thing as, like, electricity goes out. Oh, I guess I won't buy a vacuum cleaner then. It's not the same thing, because it doesn't have to always be online. It does need electricity. It doesn't have to always be online. And the only reason they're trying to force it to always be online is to try and milk you for more money, for ads, for everything else. You know, it's this contemptuous vibe for their own customers that I don't think is isolated to the games industry. I think it does happen in other forms of media. like, I mean, even look at like for example, the Witcher TV show. Like, you're going to tell me the people writing that show don't have contempt for the source material and for the fans of that source material? No, they can't stand their own fans. And so it's not isolated to just gaming, but boy, it seems like the people that are like this in the gaming space are bafflingly bold. And this is over 10 years ago. It is not a new thing, okay? This is old school. Maybe they've just gotten better at hiding it. Maybe that's it.
This excuse becomes harder to believe. And even if you remove the privileged statements he made, Orth had still led many players to believe in the always-on rumors and caused a major PR nightmare for Xbox. Orth quickly left Microsoft a few days later, claiming it was his decision, but the damage was already done. With Xbox still 1 month away...
Dude, after a few days being forced out, you need to leave. Or we're gonna fire you. That's crazy. That's crazy. And you'll see this, and we'll talk about the timeline in a second, but everything that's about to happen with the Xbox One debacle and the Don Matrix stuff will also end very, very suddenly. You'll see. It's crazy.
From officially revealing its new console, it was already shrouded in controversies. As the days moved closer to this reveal event, there wasn't the level of excitement or anticipation you would expect from a new console showcase. Rather, there was an anxious hesitation as fans worried about what Microsoft would confirm to be true from these rumors. With all of the negative press and concerning rumors stacking up against them, it was time for Xbox to speak for themselves and get across their message to gamers on what they could expect from the next Xbox console. On May 21st, 2013, Microsoft hosted the reveal event, and what would ensue over the next hour and coming weeks would end up defining the entire console generation. The event was a disaster in every sense of the word, considered one of the worst console reveals in gaming history.
I'm sorry, it's just the face. The face of a man who doesn't realize he's about to destroy a brand. It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Again, as we go through this, I'll make comments about him, I'm sure, that maybe are a little mean. But this is a man whose choices led to many people losing their jobs. It led to years of strife within the company itself, layoffs and things, all because of his choices. Meanwhile, you know what he did right as all of this implodes? He just casually leaves July 1st, 2013, to join Zynga as CEO. So, like, he just immediately, like, bailed. Was like, I'm good. So, he's revealing this on May 21st, 2013. And then in July, he leaves the company. Made it like a month and a half after this reveal. And then he bails, leaves the building on fire, and goes off to become CEO of a mobile game company and make tons of money over there. Okay, so I do not feel bad for him. You should not feel bad for him. Okay, he literally failed upwards. It's crazy.
They start by showing off the console itself and revealing the official name Xbox One. I've always hated the name of this console, granted I'm a bit biased, as I hate anything that titles itself with the number 1 after an original has already been released.
I also hate this. A lot of games did it too. Like I think Battlefield 1. I'm like, what? Why are we doing that? Why do we have to do that? But all of this reminds me, like, you know, we've been talking about how Xbox has had like no positive press at all year, basically. It's just been bad news after bad news after price hike after bad news after bad news. It's been like a consistent thing. And that is not a new thing. Okay. Like in this era, they're about to reveal the next generation Xbox that everybody should be super hyped for. And then like nobody was hyped for. Everybody was braced because all the rumors were that it was always online. You weren't going to be able to have used copies of games, which again, just process that for a second because we're kind of used to it. But again, just fast forward to today. Imagine if they announced the PlayStation 6 and the Xbox Series 15X Pro Asus ROG 3 and none of them include used game support. Like, can you imagine just how out of touch you have to be? And nowadays, people are buying online copies of games way more frequently than they were back then. And even today, I think it would go horribly if they tried to do that. And they were trying to do that in 2013. It's push for no used copies, nothing like that. It's crazy.
I think it's confusing and just annoying when speaking out loud. And I mean, seriously, try to have a conversation with someone who doesn't know video games about the original Xbox and the Xbox One and tell me they won't get confused. Regardless of how I feel about the One naming structure, the Xbox One was given that name for a very understandable reason. Xbox's goal with the Xbox One was to make it an all-in-one entertainment platform, home to not just video games, but also your TV, movies, music, and applications as well. This isn't that bad of a concept in theory. Most of the console manufacturers were pushing for similar things or had pushed for similar things in the past. Sony's PlayStation 2 and 3 were famous for their support of DVDs and Blu-rays, making them a go-to entertainment device for many. Even Nintendo was pushing for this around this time with their short-lived Nintendo TV initiative of the Wii U generation. What I'm trying to say is, the idea of Microsoft wanting their console to be an all-in-one entertainment system is not a strange or bad idea whatsoever. The problem was how desperately they tried to sell it. Microsoft chose to spend the entire first 30 minutes of the event talking about TV, movies, and the new Kinect device. We sat there for 10 minutes watching an Xbox representative yell at the Kinect to switch between watching The Price is Right and sports games, or how you could use
Kinect! Change channel, Kinect! Please! Everyone's watching, please! I also think that it didn't make sense to do it this way because, like, whose grandma is going to be watching this reveal for what cable box to buy? Like, nobody. The people watching this event were all gamers. They're the ones who are online. They're the ones who were aware of this reveal because the last generation was a gaming device. So they're watching to see what the next generation gaming device will be. And they spent the first half hour of it basically just talking about, like, I remember like the meme being TV, people cutting it together. And it's like the Xbox One presentation, but it's only TV. It's just like TV. This is a TV. It's so cringy, but it just showed again how out of touch they were with their own audience, or maybe the contempt they had for their audience because their audience wanted gaming stuff and they felt entitled to their support.
Xbox Snap to have both a movie and Bing open at the same time. Again, none of these features are inherently bad, especially
Finally,
Xbox Snap,
Bing.
which probably would have done great in today's era of Zoomers needing 3 different videos playing at a single time to stay entertained. But did this all really warrant 30 minutes of our time? Not to mention, all of this new tech and features were being built around Kinect, a device that many hardcore gamers had already written off. The Kinect was a strange device, selling incredibly well out of the gate, but having a lot of problems that turned away most players. And at the end of the day, the Kinect was a device that up until this point was seen as something for casual audiences, and casual audiences probably aren't watching an Xbox One reveal event, nor would they be buying a console day one. Regardless, they finally moved on and started talking about games.
I will say, me and my family, we had a Kinect because I think it came with our Xbox One. And we also had a Wii that my uncle had gotten us as a Christmas present. And they both had their own, like, Just Dance versions of apps or games or whatever. And I remember we all hated using the Kinect so bad because it sucked. So we would intentionally go and plug in and move the Wii from upstairs to downstairs into, like, the basement little playroom we had, specifically so we could do Just Dance down there because it worked so much better than the Kinect one that we would go through all of that hassle. Just at the end of the day, it just wasn't very good. It just wasn't very good. Now it's AI. Well, it certainly feels like that's the new focus. Dude, I got an update from my ROG Ally. I was playing Octopath Traveler last night. That's been my latest obsession. Fantastic. But I was playing Octopath Traveler on the handheld, and they updated Armory Crate, and I tapped it to just change the power profile from, like, turbo to performance or whatever so I could save some battery. And dude, even in that bar, they have Copilot's logo and stuff. They're even trying to shove AI crap into, like, the toolbar of Armory Crate on a handheld game device. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't give a crap. Why would I want Copilot there? Like, what? It doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like such a boomer.
Keep in mind, we are 30 minutes into an hour-long showcase at this point, and we are seeing a video game for the first time. The games they did finally show were fine, but nothing overly exciting. It was pretty standard stuff like new sports games, a new Forza, and Call of Duty. They did show Halo though, but it was to announce a TV show, not a game. I'm not trying to discredit the games they showed, but it just wasn't enough to make up for the 30 minutes of TV and movie talk that came before it. The worst part was, this event left people with more questions than answers about some of the rumors regarding always-on connectivity or support of used games. As the press asked these questions, many of Xbox's responses seemed snarky and dismissive, almost like they were annoyed that people wanted these questions answered. One particularly infamous moment came when Jeff Keighley interviewed then Xbox CEO Don Matrick and asked him what a player should do if they don't have good internet access. Matrick's response was to buy an Xbox 360. You can actually hear Jeff fail to hold in his laugh as the CEO of a company unveiling a new product just told consumers to buy the old one instead. Reporters were also able to get them to confirm used games would indeed be restricted by Xbox One. Games would get tied—
Hold on, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. Hold on. I'm going to find the clip because we have to play the actual clip. We have to play it. Geoff Keighley, Xbox One. Here it is.
It's a great line for games.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think people are going to love it, and then they're going to understand what we're trying to create and how it links games and entertainment, the functionality of the box, some of the advantages that you get of having a box that is designed to use an online state. So that, to me, is a future-proof choice, and I think
future-proof because it's designed to be used online. Okay.
People could have arguably gone the other way if we didn't do it, and fortunately we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device. I mean, seriously, when I read the blogs and thought about who's really the most impacted, there was a person who said, hey, I'm on a nuclear sub.
Right.
And I don't even know what it means to be on a nuclear sub, but I've got to imagine
We can tell. We know
that it's not easy to get an internet connection.
I can imagine it's hard to get an internet connection on a nuclear sub, but should just buy a 360, you know? Again, all of this is happening. The total disaster is unfolding, and within 6 weeks he will leave the company to go be CEO of a mobile game company. Like, he had no concern for the health of the platform, for the long-term effect of his decisions. It was literally just chasing what he thought shareholders would want to hear. And I mean, he jumped ship the second he had the opportunity. Absolutely crazy.
To a user's ID and would then be unable to be sold in the normal by Xbox One. Games would get tied to a user's ID and would then be unable to be sold in the normal ways we're used to. Xbox never got into specifics of how exactly this would work though, claiming they would partner with retailers and or publishers, allowing them to charge a fee for games being played on a second ID. It was all incredibly confusing and frustrating. And
so the idea was that you buy a game, you play it, you take it back to GameStop, you sell it to them, and then when somebody else comes in to buy the used copy of the game, they would have to pay an additional fee, presumably to Microsoft, to get a license to play it used. Dude, that's crazy. But again, I can see how an executive who doesn't play games could think that's a good idea, where he's like, yeah, and then we get $10 every time somebody buys a used copy of a game. It's great. Because remember, in this era, the whole problem was around used copies of games. That was like a big problem for tons of companies. And you know what happened during this time? Everybody started pushing for like massive open world adventure games with massive play times on the AAA side. And it was later revealed, actually, the game director for AC3 a few months ago was doing an interview. And he said the reason that they pushed in AC3 in late 2012, the reason they pushed for that to be such a big game, big open world game, was because their directive from on high was, we need to get our games longer so players take longer to finish them, and therefore sell them less frequently or less quickly to secondhand retailers like GameStop. And then if somebody wants to buy the game, they have to go and buy it new. Because on secondhand copies, we make 0. But if you buy it new, we make some money. And this was Don's attempt at fixing that, because he's like, yeah, now we'll get $10, or whatever publisher will get $10 when you buy a game used. So we'll still make money even on used copies. It's great. Genius. I'm sure is what he thought.
Xbox's initial attitude towards this whole thing, as if players were wrong to feel this way, was certainly not helping. The Xbox One reveal had been a total disaster, and we'll talk later about just how harmful this really was, but for now, Xbox needed to keep the ball rolling as they prepared for another major event with E3 2013. I rewatched Xbox's E3 2013 press conference for this video, and honestly, I expected way worse. The conference itself actually wasn't bad whatsoever, ditching all the talk of TV and voice commands for the Kinect. Most of this conference was spent talking about actual video games, and the games shown were pretty exciting, including some big new exclusive game announcements like Rise Son of Rome, Sunset Overdrive, and Dead Rising 3. Add into that some other major multi-platform games that made an appearance like Metal Gear Solid 5 and The Witcher 3, and this was genuinely a really strong showing from Xbox. Towards the end of the conference, they had the big moment of announcing the price of the console. It was announced that the Xbox One would retail for $499. Keep in mind, this price point was for the console itself, as well as the Kinect accessory, which would be bundled with every console, whether you wanted it or not. It had been a few weeks since the controversial Xbox One reveal event, and while those issues still loomed large, Xbox fans were understandably feeling a bit better immediately following this E3 showcase. That is, until it was time for Xbox's competitor to hold their press conference. Xbox fans, I'm sorry to do this to you, but we need to talk about PlayStation's E3 2013 press conference as well, because it is a huge part of this story. PlayStation was also promoting their new console at E3 this year, and their conference started off pretty normal. They showed off new games and features that would be coming to the PS4 console, just as Xbox had done a few hours earlier.
And it's important to understand that in this positioning, Sony was considered like kind of the underdog. The PS3 era didn't go as well for them as they wanted, coming off of the crazy success of the PS2. And as a result, like, they were hungry and they saw blood in the water with a lot of Microsoft's choices with the Xbox One. And this was their chance and they took advantage.
Changed. The then president and CEO of Sony Computer Entertainment America, Jack Tretton, walked onto the stage with a smile on his face he could hardly contain. As he begins speaking, I can only imagine the horrors of Xbox executives everywhere. Tretton begins going down the list.
Why is he smiling? Why is he so happy? Why is the oh no, are they going to be cheaper? Oh God. And it's like, yeah, and they're also going to support used games and everything else.
List of every controversial Xbox One feature we've spoken about, and confirms they won't be present on PS4. With every statement he made, the crowd started going crazier and crazier. It's not all
again, it's so insane. Trade in games at retail, sell it to another person, lend it to a friend, or keep it forever. No duh. But that was like a major selling point because of how crazy Xbox was being.
Statement he made, the crowd started going crazier and crazier. It's not often you see one of the big three console manufacturers do something like this, especially nowadays, where they publicly call out the competition. In a matter of minutes, PlayStation went from the cocky, arrogant company we had seen during the PS3 generation to now being the company fighting for the people, giving consumers what they wanted. In my opinion, this moment is genuinely one of the most impactful events in gaming history, both for its effect on the gaming scene of that time, but also its effects on the gaming scene we have today. As if this moment wasn't big enough already, PlayStation had one more thing up their sleeves. At the end of their conference, Sony announced the price of the PS4 to be $399, $100 less than the Xbox One. The crowd went wild again, and as the stage lights faded, you could almost feel that PlayStation had just won the generation before it had even officially begun. With Xbox reeling after the...
And what's crazy is... what a freeze frame. They announced what price? What's crazy is they didn't have to launch it at 500. Like, again, that was because they bundled the Kinect in, a Kinect which nobody wanted. But they forced it in because they're like, no, you're gonna get it. You're gonna like it. You're gonna like it. Like, it's just so crazy. I can imagine $399. Oh God. But I guess, you know, but he probably wasn't feeling that because, again, I think when this was, I believe this was at E3 in June. I believe, maybe does that clip I showed have the date 12 years ago? This was June 13th of 2013. Was this?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, so this is June 13th. In 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks. Yeah, July 1st. So 2 weeks after this, he's gone. So he probably didn't give a crap, honestly. Because I've never been promoted to the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar mobile game company. Confession time. It's never happened. But I would imagine it's a process longer than 2 weeks. So I'm guessing at this point, he already knew where he was going. He was like, no, in July, I'm out. In July, I'm out. So again, that little nugget makes this whole thing feel so extra toxic and stupid that he knew at this moment that none of this would affect him, that he was already headed out the door. Who cares? You know, it just makes it feel gross.
Embarrassment they faced at E3, it was clear something had to change. And so on June 19, 2013, just 9 days after the E3 fiasco, Microsoft announced a complete Xbox 180. They announced that the console would no longer require online check-ins.
I just imagine, I think probably what happened is that he knew he was on his way out. He got a stern talking to from his bosses above him at Microsoft who were like, what are you doing? Have you seen the press? Have you seen what they're saying? And I'm sure he was like, okay, yeah, reverse it all. I don't give a crap. I'm headed out the door. I don't care.
Additionally, they would not be placing any sort of restriction on the sale of used games or the act of lending your game to a friend. The game,
dude, that one is goated. Hold on, we need that clip again. The Shuhei one. How to share PS4 games. 20 million views.
This is how you share your games on PS4. Thanks.
PlayStation.
Dude, it's so freaking brilliant. And this is part of what I miss of this like era of the games industry is that it was kind of goofy. It was like a little silly and irreverent. And I feel like we just don't get a lot of that nowadays. And I miss it, man. I really miss it because that's so funny. But can you imagine like the PlayStation of today doing something like that? I just can't imagine it, but maybe. I think it'd be so funny.
Gamers had won, their outrage had been heard, and thanks to a little help from PlayStation, Xbox was forced to go back on all of their anti-consumer policies. Unfortunately though, much of the damage was already done. The Xbox One officially released on November 22nd, 2013. Reception to the console was pretty positive.
Dude, and the dance sequences! We used to get dance breaks! You remember these? Wait, I think it was it the launch of the Kinect? Launch of the Kinect dance something. I just remember an ocean of people in purple shirts dancing. Oh yes, this is it. This is 15 years ago, November of 2010. They turned the comments off. I wonder why. Okay, they're launching the Kinect. Mark Wahlberg's there. Okay. Yeah, the purple shirts, dude. I remember the purple shirts. They rented out Times Square, the Toys R Us there and everything. And then they did this whole dance break. That was just the most bizarre thing. All wearing t-shirts that said, I am the controller. I am an Xbox controller. See, now everybody's a console. Back then you were just the controller. But, you know, I guess we've graduated. It's just so crazy, dude. Like, I don't think you'd ever see this nowadays, but I would love to see it. Again, I miss the cringe. I miss it. We used to get stuff like this, which is patently ridiculous. Oh, those were the days, man. Anyway, continuing. Continuing.
Positive all around, and the first few years went decently. But as the generation went on, the PS4 took a commanding lead and never looked back. PS4 was able to double the Xbox One in sales by the time it was all said and done. Now I could sit here and talk about why this happened, but I honestly don't think it's that interesting of a story. The Xbox One had an uphill battle after its controversial reveal, and they were just never able to recover. What I find far more intriguing, and what we'll cover throughout the rest of this video, is the lasting effect the Xbox One generation has had on the entire Xbox brand. We've seen plenty of consoles come and go, all with varying levels of success, and we've seen countless examples of companies having a miss and then being able to bounce back tremendously just one generation later. But in the case of the Xbox One, it seems that the impact was much more profound. Xbox's current console line, the Series X and S, are also struggling big time, with a recent report stating that the PS5 is outselling them 3-1. According to Xbox themselves, the Xbox One generation may be to blame, at least somewhat. The basis for our discussion will be from Phil Spencer's appearance on the Kinda Funny Xcast, which aired on May 4th, 2023. If you haven't seen this interview before, I highly recommend you go and watch the whole thing. Phil was very open and honest throughout, in a way that is rare to see from someone in his position. It was here he said, and I quote, "We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation." Why is this? Well, as Phil himself mentions, most of it boils down to digital game libraries. The PS3 and 360
I should have, earlier I went into this, I should have just shut up and waited. They would go into it too. I will say, I think it would be very interesting. You know, people do these thought experiments all the time, where they're like, if I could have dinner with one historical person, who would it be, or whatever. I always am like, if I could have a no corpo speak drink with someone, like, you're not gonna try to spin anything, you're just gonna tell me honestly what you think about stuff. I would find it so fascinating to pick the brain of Phil Spencer. What does Phil Spencer think of Don Mattrick? You know, what stories does he have? Because he worked with him and then replaced him. I would love to know what he had, what kind of stories went on behind the scenes of disagreements. Maybe Phil agreed with it. I don't know. But I would love to hear some of that dirty laundry and see that get aired. It'd be so fascinating, because I think there's so much material there. It'd be really cool.
Generation was the first time we could download full games from digital storefronts, as opposed to going out to the store and buying the disc. However, it wasn't until the PS4 and Xbox One generation that it became more common for people to ditch discs entirely. As we reached the end of that generation, and especially nowadays, there are significantly more people buying their games digitally than physically.
Shut up,
what
Prey.
This meant was that for...
Dude, Prey was 2017. I feel so old. That was May of 2017. That hurts.
Nearly a decade, PS4 and Xbox One users were building giant digital game libraries that they understandably would not want to lose. With the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles being fully backwards compatible, this meant your digital game library would move with you, of course assuming you stuck with the same line of consoles. And so for most consumers, the decision of which next-gen console to buy was already made. They would be motivated to stick within the same ecosystem, as it would allow them to continue engaging with their digital libraries instead of having to start all over somewhere new.
I also have to say, I think that the messaging, and correct me if I'm wrong, I guess in chat, represent, I feel like the messaging this generation from Xbox has been hilariously bad. Super inconsistent, super unclear and vague. It's never been clear what's going to be exclusive, if anything will be, why you should buy this console now instead of that one. It's been all over the place. And I get it. They were also trying to juggle, the acquisitions of Activision Blizzard and ZeniMax. So because of that, they couldn't say things super clearly because it could affect FTC hearings and all of that. But the vibe has been so confusing. Even now, people are not super clear on what the strategy is moving forward. And I think that's no way to build an ecosystem. For better or worse, with Apple, people know what they're getting into. When you buy an Apple device, people know I'm getting into this ecosystem. I'm jumping into the steel cage I might not ever be able to climb out of, because they're going to try to keep me in here. you know what you're getting into. You know they're going to build the ecosystem up. They're going to give you really impressive software that's designed to keep you contained and keep you inside their ecosystem. You know what you're getting. It's very, very clear. But with Xbox, it's been very, very not that, where there's been messaging suggesting that everything's going to be multi-platform, and then there's been messaging that other games are going to stay exclusive. Even back when like the porting to PlayStation stuff was starting, there was messaging saying, you know, well, we have like 4 games that we're bringing to PlayStation. And when asked about Halo, he's like, he wouldn't say that Halo was not coming to PlayStation, because of course it eventually would. But he wouldn't just say that, you know. I think it would have been much better served if they just came out very clearly in 2023 and it's like, everything's going multi-platform. We're not going to do the whole exclusive things. We're going to have the best hardware we can have on our consoles and encourage you to buy those. Maybe offering bundles or discounts to Game Pass if you're using an Xbox or whatever. Maybe, you know, probably not. But, you know, where our goal is to produce great games and distribute them to everybody. That's the goal. And full stop, you know. And if that's what he said just very clearly, there would have been great uproar and gnashing of teeth. Certainly there'd be people plenty upset, but at least then everybody would be on the same page, you know. Everybody would be. Consoles are not prestige objects like Apple. I do think actually PlayStation has tried very hard to build up themselves as a luxury prestige product, at least in the gaming space. And I would argue you can see this where people will like put up, you'll see it on like some YouTubers and streamers setups. They'll like in the background have the PS5 Pro box and the Elite, whatever they call it, DualSense Edge. They'll have that box in the corner so you can see that they bought those devices. It's like trying to flex on it. I think I at least I've seen it. Maybe I'm just reading into it, but I've seen that.
Fortunately for Xbox, there were double as many PS4 digital game libraries out there that people would want to stick by. And so once again, Xbox found themselves facing a major uphill battle.
Oh, actually, this is unrelated, sort of. But honest question, sorry, ADHD brain. Do you think they made, I had this thought the other day, do you think they intentionally made the PS5 really freaking awkward so that you couldn't just tuck it away on like your shelf, but you had to have like a lot of space for it? And because it was so weirdly shaped, you had to basically turn it into a set piece on your media center. I think they intentionally made it super freaking awkwardly shaped so you couldn't just get it into like the Tetris of your media center. You had to like clear off a shelf to make it a statement, a centerpiece that everybody could see. It's my conspiracy theory, at least, is that they made it intentionally awkward.
To not only convince someone to buy an Xbox Series console, but also convince that same someone to ditch their last 8 years of digital purchases. It didn't used to be this way. Every console was a clean slate, usually with little to no connection to the previous ones. You could go from a Nintendo 64 to a PS2 to an Xbox 360 without much worry. But nowadays, there is way more incentive to stick with one brand and ecosystem.
Baggage.
And as Phil says, the last generation where switching console manufacturers was viable for most people was indeed the Xbox One generation, the generation that Xbox lost handily. What this has,
well, I think it also was exacerbated by the fact that the this generation has had, it probably had, I think, the biggest cross-generational gap of any generation I can think of, meaning that there was a period for like 2 or 3 years, granted it was coming out of COVID, but like there was a period of 2 to 3 years where everything that was coming out was also cross-generational, and it was cross like, you know, on PS4 and then also on PS5. And I think that exacerbated it because that made gamers much more reliant on their old library, as opposed to like the way they used to do it, where it was just a clean cut. It's like next gen, now all the games coming are for that next gen. Maybe we have a game for the last gen, like an AC Rogue or something, but now that we're in the next gen, this is a next gen product, next gen game. That's what we're doing. And so I think the cross-generational thing made it worse for Xbox than it normally would have been. But it was also because all of the other publishers and everybody else wanted to double dip, and so they were making cross-gen games, and I think that just compounded it.
caused is a scenario where Xbox has been forced to play catch-up for the better part of 10 years now. And I think almost everything you've
Sorry, I'm
seen
just
out of
covering his
Xbox over the
face.
last decade, both good and bad, all boils down to this fact. The Xbox brand is in a strange place at the moment. As I'm sure you have all seen, Xbox has begun releasing previously exclusive games on rival hardware like PS5 and Switch. Games like Sea of Thieves or Hi-Fi Rush were among the first batch to make the jump, but we're seeing that list continue to grow, including the recent announcement that Indiana Jones: The Great Circle will be coming to PS5 just a few months after its Xbox release. It has started to feel like Xbox is slowly creeping towards becoming a third party instead of a console manufacturer. Is this simply because of the poor sales of Series X and S, or is there something more here? I think a big reason for it is two major pivots Xbox made during the struggles of Xbox One. The first is their affinity for big acquisitions. Xbox first-party games struggled throughout the Xbox One generation, and was a big reason why that console couldn't keep up with the PS4. It was a strange phenomenon, as Xbox had been pretty consistent with their first-party output since the original Xbox. And while the Xbox One generation started out decently, things got worse as the years went on. Many first-party releases were of questionable quality, and there were long drought periods where players were getting almost nothing. With Xbox struggling to supply meaningful first-party games on their own, they looked outward. In 2020, they purchased Bethesda, and at that time were
I will say, Matt Booty, this guy, he is head of Microsoft Studios, and now I guess head of Xbox Game Studios is his official title. But he is an interesting character because he's the guy that's been in charge of this for a long time. And you can see in this article from 2024, he said, we're beginning to hit our stride with Game Pass strategy and studio closures. And all the Variety did him dirty with that. But I'm sorry. I've never actually met him. I've been at events with him there, and like we've been in the same space, and he seems like a nice guy, but he seems like there's no nice way of saying this. He seems bad at his job. You know, like if your job is to head up the studios and maintain a certain quality standard and get things out on time and clearly message what those games are and support the studios and, you know, not lay off the talent. It seems like he's bad at his job, but he's still there. And that makes that whenever you see something like that, where it's like, this person seems to be doing a bad job to me, but they're still like climbing the corporate ladder, still getting promotions, they still have the job. How is that possible? That should give you a moment where you go, okay, maybe it's bad by my standards, but does that mean it's bad by Microsoft's standards? Those are two different things, you know? Just because from a gamer's perspective, consistency hasn't been super high, you know, or quality's not been incredibly high or consistent. Like PlayStation, you can trust that if it's a first-party game from one of their first-party studios and, you know, it's one of their big tentpole AAA releases, whether it's a God of War, Wolverine, Intergalactic, Ghost of Yotei, whatever it is, it's going to be a very good game. With Xbox, it's like, maybe, or it'll be just fine. But again, that assumes that that's what their goals are. Their goals are probably different, it would seem. Their goal is not to make 10 out of 10 games. Their goals are to create games that keep you subscribed to Game Pass. And to do that efficiently, quickly, as cheaply as possible. And I think in that pursuit, he has been successful. Because they have managed to do that, and they have managed to shove stuff out. We'll see if that maintains over the next, 10 years. But I think, you know, for them, if it's 30-40% more expensive to go from an 8 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10, that probably the math doesn't math, especially on a service like Game Pass. It just doesn't really matter. Like, as long as people are playing and staying subscribed, they're happy. So I think that's the standard. That's the shift where it doesn't, he might be bad at his job from our perspective by our standards, but that's the point, is our standards are not the same as the ones he's being judged against.
saying their games would now be exclusive to Xbox and PC. For the first few years, this held true, with games like Starfield and Redfall skipping rival platforms. Meanwhile, Xbox had their eyes on an even bigger target.
I'm sorry, this is funny. They killed the brand. Someone did a bad job. Fair. You're like, the brand was alive. Now it is dead. Something went wrong. That's fair, honestly. I think without a doubt, to me, the brand reputation is quite poor right now. I think that when people right now hear Xbox, it's not even really clear what you're talking about, which is crazy. But like you say, PlayStation, people immediately are like, okay, so the console/gaming brand. With Xbox, it's like, so it's the box, but then it's also the cloud streaming, and it's also this handheld made by Asus, but then it's also my phone. So it's like a software platform, but it's also still the box. Like, it's just not very clear. Their messaging has always been terrible. I mean, again, just the naming conventions. The Xbox, then the Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox ROG, Xbox Ally X. Like, their naming conventions and communication have always been terrible. I think it's more of a Microsoft thing, but the communication has been where they've really suffered.
2022, they announced they would be purchasing Activision Blizzard. Immediately, the questions began of whether this meant games like Call of Duty would no longer be on PlayStation. And at first, Xbox was not committing that they wouldn't make Call of Duty an exclusive. But then the FTC got involved and it was a huge thing, and in the end, they made a deal with PlayStation to keep COD coming to the platform. And really, as the years have gone on, it seems that basically none of Activision Blizzard's games will be exclusive to Xbox. Meanwhile, more and more games within Bethesda are not going to stay exclusive either, including the previously mentioned upcoming Indiana Jones game and Doom: The Dark Ages. It was a nice,
which ended up being very good. Indiana Jones is very good. Really like it.
Nice power play by Xbox to buy these teams, but in all honesty, I don't think there was any world where they could have realistically kept these games exclusive. And the main reason for that is Game Pass. Game Pass first launched in 2017 during the middle of the Xbox One generation. It was one of Xbox's biggest moves of that generation to try and make a splash. Game Pass is a simple subscription service that grants players access to hundreds of games. But what makes Game Pass different is the inclusion of Day 1 games coming to the service the same day they are released. This included major first-party games such as Sea of Thieves and Forza Horizon 4 releasing on Game Pass the very same day they were released for purchase. This was huge. No other company was doing this at the time, and it made Game Pass the absolute best deal in gaming. I often joke about Game Pass, saying it is literally too good of a deal, to the point where I don't even understand how they're making any money off of it. In fact, Game Pass is such a good deal that if you own an Xbox console, it really doesn't make any sense to not have it. In other words, a lot of Xbox players find themselves very rarely actually buying games, instead just playing everything on Game Pass. In a sense, Xbox introduced a subscription service so good, they accidentally trained their audience to never buy games again. This becomes quite a bit.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you shouldn't be surprised if you build your brand from that 2017 era onward. You build your brand around being the most cost-effective, the cheapest, the most affordable, whatever word you want to use. You shouldn't be surprised when you have a very, very price-sensitive audience. And then, like, they come along and they raise the cost and price of their consoles significantly by like $100, $200. And then they act shocked that people are upset about it. It's like, well, what did you expect? You know, like your whole brand has been about being the most affordable, the best bang for the buck in gaming. And then you come along and your price hikes on your consoles and your hardware are egregious. And you're like, what do you, well, I mean, tariffs. You know, I mean, they kind of did this to themselves, certainly, at least as far as I can tell. And as we know now, we didn't know this when this video first dropped. This is a video from 2024, but now we know that it's been a rough, the math is rough. I mean, the estimated losses of Call of Duty being included in Game Pass, they estimated that they lost roughly $300 million in sales by it being on Game Pass. So all of those people that would have bought it at full price at 70 did not buy it because they got it on Game Pass. And the amount of losses, the gap between what they made and what they would have gotten was $300 million. And when you look at Game Pass as a service, they've got to make that money up somewhere. And it comes from all of the others. It comes from subsidizing the losses with everybody else. So Call of Duty is sort of a loss leader. Amazing to say that, but they lose a good chunk of money on Call of Duty being on Game Pass, but then they try to make it up with games like a Fallout 4 Creations system or Fallout 76, and they try to make it up with all these other games that they try to put live service components into. And that lifts it up and covers some of those losses. Because again, all of this is happening in the context also of something we didn't know when this video first dropped, which is that now it's clear Amy Hood, the CFO of Microsoft, has mandated that every department within Microsoft, including Xbox, needs to hit 30% profit margin on everything. So, woof. In the games industry, it's typical to hit about 12%. They're expected to find just under 3 times the profitability as every other game developer and publisher in the industry. Easier said than done. That's why you see all of these companies starting to like desperately lay people off. They're trying to use AI to increase margins. They're trying to put microtransactions and DLC, whatever they can come up with to try and boost margins.
Big problem after acquiring 2 of the biggest third-party studios in the world. And
how bad does everything have to be for everything to be hitting 30%? Do you mean how bad are things within the company that they need to mandate that goal? Or do you mean how bad would they have to treat like employees and everything to hit the 30% goal? Basically, my understanding is a 30% margin is something you can achieve within data centers and AI infrastructure stuff. And like data centers, you can hit 30% margin just fine. Very, very doable. You cannot do that in the gaming industry, at least not easily. Mobile games can hit 30%. You can't hit 30% in console games traditionally. You just can't. It doesn't work. Gamers are not willing to spend that much for cheap games like that. But anyway.
Now having to support them. Game Pass has a ton of subscribers across Xbox and PC, and with them recently raising prices and adding more expensive tiers, Game Pass definitely does make a lot of money, but it doesn't make enough money to support all of Bethesda and Activision Blizzard single-handedly. That's just not possible. And so Xbox was forced to look for other ways to increase their revenue, leading to the games on rival platforms pivot that we've seen. And so that brings us to the present day. With Xbox console sales struggling and their previously exclusive games coming to rival platforms, many are wondering if Xbox will even be making consoles for much longer. For now, Microsoft's messaging has indicated that they will give it one more go with another new console generation. But if that one fails too, there is a legitimate scenario where Xbox no longer makes consoles and instead goes the route of Sega. It's pretty interesting to lay it all out like this and see it this way. The massive miscalculations Xbox made during the reveal of the Xbox One led to a deterioration of the Xbox brand and a failed Xbox One generation. This failed generation led Xbox into the Game Pass and acquisition era, 2 things that actually don't mix together very well at all. This very thing has cornered them into a position where they're forced to act more as a third party than they had ever anticipated. I find this timeline and story incredibly interesting, and I am so intrigued to see where Xbox tries to take things from here. I hope Xbox can find some way to bounce back, because we need that kind of competition in the console space. But for now, Xbox appears to be on a crash course to become a third-party publisher. Ironically, they would probably make more money doing so, as they would genuinely become the biggest third-party publisher out there in an instant. But will they dare to make that drastic of a decision, or will they continue floating along as they are now, making consoles while sprinkling more and more games onto rival hardware? Only time will tell.
I think what's going to happen, these are my big brain predictions, okay? Buckle up. Here we go, because you're going to be able to grade me against this in the years to come. I think what happens, 2028, I think they launch the next generation of consoles. I think either shortly before or shortly after it's announced that Phil Spencer is going to be retiring. I think he will be replaced by Sarah Bond. Sarah Bond is a like she is through and through corporate business executive. Okay, like she's a shark. Okay, do not underestimate her. She came from basically nothing and then climbed the ranks of multiple different companies to end up as president of Xbox today. And I think that they are setting her up to be the next CEO of Xbox after Phil leaves. I think that she's being she's going to be put in that position by Satya Nadella, who ultimately will make the choice. And the reason I think that is because her role during the FTC hearings was specifically to get the FTC lawsuit settled, to get the Activision Blizzard deal closed, $70 billion deal. And it was basically on her shoulders to get it done. And she did. And I think Satya likes that. And I also think Satya likes that she, no doubt, will like play the corporate game. If they're like, hey, you need to lay off 10% of your workforce, like she'll do it. Her background is actually at like a business consultation firm where a lot of the work they did was in going to big firms and finding where to cut fat and like trim the budgets and stuff. So she is like pure corporate executive. And I think that that's probably who's going to replace Phil when he's retiring. Matt Booty probably stays where he's at. Maybe he becomes president of Xbox, takes Sarah's position. I don't know. We'll see. That's my expectation and guess. Beyond that, in terms of the actual hardware, I think probably what happens is that over the next 5 to 10 years, it will continue to kind of develop the way it has, where they're going to rely a lot more on third-party hardware manufacturing. So you're going to see more ROG, Xbox Allies, or whatever. And I think that they will still make their own hardware, but I think it's going to take the form of like the Surface laptops. And basically these are Microsoft laptops that they manufacture, they produce and everything, but you know, they are not the focus. Like, yes, these are Microsoft manufactured laptops. They like, it's a Microsoft laptop, but I mean, it's not their focus. You know, this is not like the MacBook Pro for Apple, where they're putting a lot of effort into it. For them, it's a relatively low effort endeavor. So that's where I think that they'll go. I think they probably will always have an Xbox device available, but I'm not sure if it's going to go much beyond that. So, sorry. I was gonna try to just covertly switch back to this shot, and then I couldn't keep a straight face. Sorry, I'm not professional. I'm not professional. Sorry, very sorry. Not professional. I should be more professional. Sarah Bond lacks gaming ethos. I don't care if she's a corporate shark or not. Well, I guess I could be clear. I'm not saying she is who I would put in charge if I were in charge. If I were in charge, I would not put Sarah Bond in charge. I would not put Matt Booty in charge. Hell, I don't think I'd put Phil Spencer in charge. So, to be clear, this is a difference between what I want and what I think is going to happen, okay? Just because I think this is going to happen does not mean it's what I want, okay? It's the same thing with like the Activision Blizzard acquisition. I said back when that was happening, I was like, no, if I were the God Emperor of gaming, I would not have this happen. Like I would shut this deal down. I think consolidation of these big publishers is bad for the industry. Same with ZeniMax buying out or being bought out by Xbox. I think that's bad for the industry. But unfortunately for all of us, I'm not the God Emperor of gaming, so I don't get to choose. But if I have to guess what I think Satya and Hood and everybody, what I think that they're going to do, I think that they're going to put another corporate shark like Sarah Bond in that position. That's what I think. Yeah. Yeah. That's my guess. That's my guess. Microsoft. Oh, wait, I should read this one first. Keaton Habeck, thank you for the 10. Would it be better for publishers to be run by game devs, or is it a dog scent a dog scent skill set games dev don't usually have. A dog scent skill set. I haven't heard of that term. I think there are two sides of gaming, which, well, really three, that I think really, really make it a beautiful, beautiful industry in many ways. Okay. I think that gaming really at its core is a pyramid. Okay. It's a triangle of art, of, I would say, engineering, and then business. Okay. And I think that this triangle is what makes gaming so fascinating, because there's businesses where it is, you know, it's literally just business. It's like a finance company and there's not much art involved. There's engineering companies and businesses and industries. There's art and things like the music industry, which maybe there's a little bit of business involved there, but there's not really any engineering. But gaming is all three. And I'd put it marketing up here, frankly. But gaming is all three. And I think that the thing is, publishing is one of those business sides of the equation. And I think a lot of people who develop games, they are not that interested in the business side of it. I think the people who are really good at art and like writing compelling stories, they're not concerning themselves with how to like build out the best rendering pipeline for ray tracing. Like, I don't think that they care. They're just trying to make compelling stories, or they're trying to design quests that work the best and are compelling. And so you end up relying a lot on different departments and teams and members of your studio who are great at their own specific thing, but you're all working together in one pursuit of building this game and then creating it as a product that can turn a profit and pay the bills. So it's a collaborative effort. I think just putting game devs in charge of publishing or marketing is how you can end up with somebody that like is, I mean, it's how you honestly end up with those E3 presentations. Like, if you want to know why it's not that common to have game developers present video games, it's because of stuff like this.
Million players on 14 platforms. The Minecraft community is one of the biggest in gaming. There you are, Sax. Here, catch.
Because he's a game dev. He's not a presenter. He's not somebody that's like doing this kind of thing. Like, it's not his expertise, and that is okay. He's a great game dev, you know?
There is something else, though, that you've been asking us about.
And then Todd is one of those weird guys who kind of is involved in everything. I think he started as a programmer at BGS, and then he became like one of the production leads, and then he ended up doing a lot more of the business stuff. I think Todd's better at the game stuff. I think when he does business, it's just all paid mods. And it's frustrating. But anyway. Ubisoft, a dog scent company. Dog scent, like smell? I was wondering if it was like a mistype of God scent, but then I was like, or is it a God scent skill set? Maybe it was God scent. I don't know. I don't understand. But yeah, all of this to say, would it be better for publishers to be run by game devs? I think game devs should run game development studios. Publishers should be run by people who specialize in publishing. I think the key distinction is that people involved in publishing should understand what their role is and stay out of game development, and vice versa. You know, everybody should know their position. It's why it was so refreshing to hear Strauss Zelnick, head of Take-Two, when he did that interview over the summer, where he said, my job is to hire and support the best devs in the industry and to get out of their way. That's my job. It's like, yes, thank you. Yes, that's great. That's why you are the guy that's putting out GTA 6 and Red Dead 2 and not, you know, some other studio. Makes sense. Luke Warfield, thank you for the 5. Do you think Xbox should just stop consoles? They don't care enough to improve at this point, and stopped exclusive. They are barely selling them. No, I mean, put it out. My fear is that they just will do another thing where they put out like another Series S that kind of is the weakest link and holds back the generation. That would be my fear. But no, I'd say still put out the hardware. I just hope that they don't put out really weak hardware that then holds back the whole generation. But time will tell. Time will tell. Zero Dawn Gaming, thank you for the 2. Luke, one of the best streamers in gaming. I don't think I would say that, but thank you for being here, my friend. Blue, thank you for the 5. Hey, Luke, off topic, but do you think EA should revive Medal of Honor? I think Activision should make COD 5 and start over like with 2019, but COD is dying. Rebooting Medal of Honor would actually be really, really interesting. That actually would be really cool. I'd be very interested in that. Strauss Zelnick for Xbox head. I think he would actually, unironically, probably, that's a lot of caveats. I think Strauss Zelnick would actually most likely do a pretty good job. He, I think, understands, for one, that AI is not a fix-all, which I think is going to be the big push for Microsoft in the next 10 years, is everything's going to just be, use AI for everything. I think also Strauss understands that you can do some stuff with sports games that you cannot do for other games. I think he gets that mobile and console and PC gamers are all different, and that is an important distinction that I don't think Sarah Bond fully appreciates, but I do think Phil Spencer gets. So yeah, I think he actually probably would do a decent job. Strauss Zelnick said, back to PC gaming. What he said was he thinks the entire industry is moving towards more open platforms. He thinks that it's not going to be defined in closed ecosystems like with PlayStation or Switch or whatever. He thinks everything's moving towards more open platforms, which I think is also true. Does that mean that like most players will be on PCs in 10 years? I don't know. Probably not, especially if they stay so expensive. But yeah, I think he's right there. Yeah, not with $600 RAM. Yeah, exactly. But the problem is that's also going to affect consoles too. Anybody who was like, oh, I think we'll see next gen consoles or like major refreshes in 26. No, 27 is a stretch. 26 is absolutely not, especially now. Let's see. I love Octopath Traveler. Are you excited for Zero? Yeah, I played the demo and everything, so I'm ready to go for when Zero drops. I don't know how I feel about it compared to like Octopath Traveler 1 and 2. I'm undecided so far because it's a very different format, but we'll see. I do really like Octopath Traveler, but I'm not sure what I think of it yet. Zero, that is. Imagine if we caused as much damage as Matrick did. We'd be blacklisted from any recruiter. Make it make sense. Well, he went off, worked at Zynga for a handful of years, and then my understanding is that he basically retired, but he made a crap ton of money in the process. Why is it called Zero? It's like a prequel. And apparently games nowadays, if you just call it Zero, it's cool. So I think that's the thing. The current generation made me play and appreciate my PS3 again. Good. It's important to appreciate it. And because it's not always online, you can still play it. If the Xbox One had been made always online, you probably wouldn't have been able to.
Seems
okay. News, Emmett. Oh, real quick. Where is it? Josh, I'm so sorry. 40 minutes ago, you sent all these bits. I'm sorry. I was in the zone. Thank you for the bits. He said, do you think COD should just stop making campaigns at this point? The multiplayer and zombies is amazing this year, one of the best in the last decade. But all of the reviews on online YouTube rage bait channels just focus on the campaign because it's easy clicks. The same thing happened with Modern Warfare 3, where the community really liked the multiplayer, but it got so much bad PR because of the campaign that nobody cares about it. Like I said earlier, my stance is that if you're going to do something poorly, just don't do it. Like, if you're going to do something laughably badly, just don't do it. You know, I think maybe that makes me defeatist, but like, if you're going to do a bad job, just don't do it. You know, so if the best campaign they can do is what they did this year, let's just not bother. You know, we could just skip it. I don't know if there's going to be people really upset about dropping the campaign, but I think that to me, it seems like they want to drop the campaign. It seems that they want to drop the campaign, but I don't know. Didn't they hype up the campaign a lot? Yeah, which scares me because I think that they may have actually thought that that was really, really good, which is scary. Because if you think that's really, really good, oh God. Oh boy. Mr. Beard, thank you for that one. I think in the near future, the game devs would do a strike, like the writing strike in Hollywood, on the corporations that they work for. Some of them have in different studios around the world. This is the difficulty with doing strikes, period, in software development and game design, everything, is that because of globalization of all of our infrastructure with cloud development and tools and everything, if you are in a studio in Dallas, Texas, and you're going on strike and you're being a real headache for those people in what is it? What is there? Bellevue is Microsoft's headquarters, I think. If you're being causing real headache for the people at Microsoft, and they're looking at you and they're like, okay, so we could just lay them off and then go hire another team in Japan or China or Korea or wherever for way cheaper, and they won't cause us trouble. Let's maybe we look at that. Redmond, that's it. Redmond, thank you. I think that inevitably happens. And it is technically union busting, which is illegal. You can't do that. But are we really going to pretend that that union busting doesn't happen? Like, it does. It does. There are so many loopholes for them to take advantage of. Like literally Rockstar, it allegedly looks like they just did this, where employees at Rockstar North were sharing in a Discord server discussions of forming a union to get better pay, better health care, to work less hours, that type of thing. And because they were technically discussing business stuff outside of business like channels, they were all fired, like 34 people instantly, for sharing like work information outside of work channels, which is a fireable offense, which is technically true. But are we really going to pretend like it wasn't also because they were talking about a union? Like, are we really going to be like, no, totally unrelated? Come on. Clearly connect the dots. You know? And so I think that's just the difficulty, is that because it's so easy for these companies to just lay off a team and then go hire contractors, you can go on strike, but they'll just replace you, which has happened many times before. You remember, like, even in freaking The Office, you remember in The Office, I've referenced this before, but it's because people know it. The Office. I wonder if I can even find the clip. Let's see. It's specifically when the warehouse goes on strike. Yeah, I think it's right here.
Look.
She went on, the warehouse announces that they want to go on strike, and then she comes in.
You look.
Oh no, that's when they got back from vacation. Okay, I don't think they have the clip. But basically, Jan comes in and tells them all, hey guys, if you form a union and go on strike, we'll just shut down your entire branch. We'll just shut down everything. All of you will be fired. So go for it, but understand what's going to happen. And that's what a lot of these big companies do, is they're like, no, you can totally go on strike. You can totally form a union. Absolutely. Feel free, form a union. You know, all of you animators, gameplay designers, yeah, get together. You can talk to us about getting better pay and better health care. You can absolutely do that. You know, that's just, it happens. And then conveniently, a lot of those teams end up getting laid off in the next round of layoffs, which maybe I'm breaking news here, but there's definitely going to be another round of layoffs that hits in the spring. Definitely. I would bet very good money there's going to be another round of layoffs. So yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I would bet you a lot of the companies that are going to see layoffs within Microsoft are going to probably be at studios that have a fairly large union presence. I would not be shocked at all. Let's see. Anyway, America, baby. Yeah, baby. News, amen. So this was shared with me on our Discord, by the way. If you're not a member of our Discord, YouTube members, Twitch subs, whether gifted or not, all of them get access to our exclusive Discord. You just connect your accounts and you can join us, having a great time over there. But this was submitted by a viewer over on the Discord, and it's simply titled, it's a video from Livid, and it's simply titled, Todd Howard Mismanaged Elder Scrolls 6. I'll let him explain. Which I do love in concept. Just being like, take it away, Todd. Go ahead. So I figured we could see just what this is, because my understanding after skimming the playhead through it is that this is literally just a collection of clips of Todd talking about Elder Scrolls 6 over the years and steadily becoming more and more bedeviled at how out of control it's gotten. Because at this point, it will almost certainly be, I would guess, 17 years, roughly, since the last Elder Scrolls game when we get Elder Scrolls 6. Because right now it looks like it's probably 2028, assuming no massive delays or anything. That would give it 5 years of production after Starfield, which is fairly optimistic, but that would put it roughly there. Cross-generational title between the PS5 era and PS6 era, which, yes, it's going to launch on both. I would bet you good money. And yeah, I think that that's probably what we're looking at. But close to 20 years between releases. And then that would also set them up to probably get Fallout 5 out in 2033 to 2035, putting it also close to 20 years after its last entry. So let's see what he had to say. The candle is lit. Take it away.
Seems like we're probably going to go a decade between major Elder Scrolls releases.
I think everyone should be very patient.
Todd, you sly bastard. Todd, you sly bastard. I think everybody should be very patient. I think this is a clip from 2018, shortly after the reveal that the game was being made, and also around the same era as Fallout 76 when they were doing a lot of press, which I think is what this was for. And so at that point, he says, it's about a decade. So he's thinking 2021. You poor naive fool. I don't think they even started actually working on it until like probably 2024. Realistically, I don't think they started until like after Starfield was out the door, and then they like went on vacation for the holidays, came back, and then I think they actually started. But I don't think they had even like really been working on it at this point.
And that's like,
welcome folks, I'm Livid. In today's video, I'm going to let Todd Howard, the director of Bethesda Game Studios, explain why Elder Scrolls 6 is taking so long. Believe it or not, there are some people online who believe that this game is 15 years in the making, that these types of games take decades to make, that when Skyrim dropped on 11/11/11, Bethesda went right to work on the sequel. But I'm going to let Todd Howard refute those baseless accusations. I'll be jumping in here and there to give some of my own opinions too. All right, let's get started.
Yeah, I do think that there is a common misconception that like GTA 6 has been in the works since 2013, and that's not true. They worked on it after they put out Red Dead 2. That's certainly true. But I also think that there's a misconception, which I think is more fair, which is that when the game is announced, they're working on it. I think that's a fair assumption to make. When you announce a game and show a trailer, that you're working on it. And I think it's very, very likely that work would not begin until 5 to 6 years after they announced it. Which is crazy.
Yeah, well, because I remember it was a couple years ago on this show where you sort of talked about, you know, your longer term philosophy for the studio and that, you know, you were going to do the Elder Scrolls 6 after this other mystery game that was sort of in between. So I guess we now know what that mystery game is?
Yes, it's Starfield, which is incredibly exciting for us. We've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah.
Working on it for a long time in 2018. Maybe he just meant 3 years since like Fallout 4, but.
And, you know, it's one of those things where even though we're announcing it, there'll be a time, obviously, where we really show it off and dig deep, and that'll be closer to its release.
Yeah, this is important to understand is also the very, very specific context of the announcement. It was revealed in 2018. In 2018, at this point, Bethesda had not been acquired yet. ZeniMax, rather, their parent company, had not been acquired yet, but they were actively shopping around. There was news that there were some interested parties like Vivendi, for example, but they didn't really materialize. I remember making a video at that time where I said, I think that they're going to sell. I think that's why they've gotten so greedy all of a sudden, and it ended up being true. But I think what happened, very similar to how Bungie greenlit a bunch of projects right before selling to PlayStation, to boost the value of their company, at least on paper. I think that ZeniMax also did that too, where they greenlit all of these live service games to try and boost the bottom line, to also, again, build out the balance sheet and get more for the company when they sold it. It's why we got Redfall greenlit during this period, Fallout 76, all of these live service games that ended up being kind of disasters. They all came out of this era.
Announced them, but he said it really was just a logo resolve, and there's not a lot. You said it was, I think it was a next generation single player experience. Your time, how you're sort of, you know, you've got 3 studios now in BGS. I mean, where are you focusing your time right now?
Dude, I just saw Rage 2 in the bottom. That's a throwback. Do you guys remember Rage?
Tend to look, first of all, we have a great team, and I've worked with a lot of these people. You know, the average time is over a decade, and they really know their stuff. So it doesn't take me kind of digging in the weeds on everything. I tend to spend my time up front when we're doing a game, you know, creatively, what is this going to be? And then as it's coming in, you know, Fallout 76 right now is dominating our studio's bandwidth because that's the game that's coming out, and we have more people on that project than we've ever had on any project.
When it came out, this narrative changed quick. I don't know if people remember it, but when Fallout 76 came out and was a disaster, it very quickly pivoted and it became Bethesda Game Studios Austin's fault because they had bought out this studio that became BGS Austin, and that was their baby, was going to be Fallout 76. And so very quickly it pivoted and was, well, it's an Austin game that Maryland is helping with, but it's not really us, it's them. It's, even though nowadays, in like, now that Fallout 76 is more successful and popular, it's doing better with the show, the narrative's shifted again, and so now Maryland takes more credit for it. But it's very funny how the narrative changed.
But then the mobile game Blades is it's amazing, and that's an awesome team. Most of them are in Montreal, but we also do work in Rockville on that game. And that's fun to do as well. So for me right now, I'm still a kid in a candy store. You know, I get to look at all of these games and work with all these amazing people.
But is it transitional for you? Because I mean, I think for many times your team, you were focused on kind of one project. It was all in 100% on that. And now you've got, I mean, feels like 4 or 5 things that are sort of competing for attention.
Well, the other thing is, I think it's from the outside. It's viewed one way. We always overlapped. You know, a Oblivion into Fallout 3 into Skyrim into Fallout 4 and then Fallout Shelter and doing VR versions.
I think the difference is those projects overlapped, but all of those projects were single player, like narrative adventure games. And they're the games that your fans really wanted. Now the overlap is between like Starfield and then Fallout 76 and then a new mobile game, and then probably an Elder Scrolls Online game as well. That's I suspect is in early phases, but that's just me. And I think all of this other stuff, including like multiple mobile games, the creations updates for Fallout 4, which has nothing to do with anything except more ways to make money. Like they're overlapping projects, sure, but now it's overlapping like all sorts of stuff that nobody really cares about, you know. And I think that's part of the frustration. I remember both Rages not delivering on promising concepts. Yeah, I think the studio behind Rage 2 also shut down, I think. Didn't they cancel the new ESO project? My understanding is that ESO is still going. The studio that makes ESO, ZeniMax Online Entertainment, Project Blackbird, that they were also working on, that was shut down. Conveniently for Microsoft, it was also a team that was heavily unionized and actively unionizing, and they happened to lay off a lot of people over there. Strange. But that project was shut down. Those layoffs hit, and I would not be surprised if they sort of sunset ESO and then they kickstart basically Elder Scrolls 76, which I think they're going to do probably after Elder Scrolls Online or Elder Scrolls 6, because Todd has also made comments in the last few years where he said stuff like, yeah, we have Elder Scrolls 6 and then Fallout 5 after that. And then somebody asked him a clarifying question, and I did a whole video on this on the main channel you can check out, but somebody asked him a clarifying question, and he took a moment and he said, I just want to be clear, when I said Fallout 5 is coming after that, I just meant some point in the future. Like, it's coming after Elder Scrolls, obviously. It's like, why would you need to clarify that? If it's next, you would just say it's next, like he's doing right now, saying Elder Scrolls is after Starfield. Why do you feel the need to clarify that it's coming at some point after Elder Scrolls 6, but you don't want to say that it's next? It would suggest to me that there's something between. That there's something between Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, which is why he felt the need to clarify. I just meant it's after. I just meant it's at some point in the future after Elder Scrolls 6, which makes me think that they're working on another project. What do we know they like to do? They like to have an online version of their games in-house that they can make money on and recurrent revenue on between like the 20 years between major releases. And to me, it's either Starfield Online or it's going to be Elder Scrolls Online. That would be my guess. But time will tell. Because he's going to launch Starfield 2. Oh my God, please no.
And so this is just, it's a larger scale of that, but it's the same, where we are we'll do pre-production with a smaller amount of people until the game is really there. Right. And then when we enter production, we move the bulk of the studio to that game, but not all of the studio. And then as it's, coming in to get finishing for shipping, that's where our focus is.
So would you say, I mean, Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, are they in production now?
I would say Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production, and Starfield is in production. It's a game we've been making for a while.
When you were on the show a couple years ago, Elder Scrolls 6, you said that...
So in 2018, he says pre-production. This is also fascinating because I just posted that Cyberpunk video where where they said that their timelines from pre-production to shipping is between 4 and 5 years. So when they go into pre-production, it should be 4 to 5 years, and then the game comes out, which would put The Witcher 4 at 2027, because they entered pre-production in May of 2022. And they just entered pre-production on Cyberpunk 2 in May of this year. So I think it's fascinating to hear that they were in pre-production on Elder Scrolls 6 in 2018, 10 years before they probably end up launching. Takes double the time. I wonder if that means Elder Scrolls 6 will be double the game that The Witcher 4 is. I don't know. But I do love the idea that we could get, again, The Witcher 4 versus Elder Scrolls 6. That head-to-head very well could happen.
I think something along the lines, someone reminded me on Twitter last night that the technology wasn't there yet for the game you wanted to build when you said this thing was 2 years ago on the show.
Yes.
Is the technology there now?
It's getting closer.
Okay.
Todd says it himself right here. They've got a bunch of different projects that the smaller studios are working on. He works with the main team working on their big titles. In 2018, they had only started pre-production. Later in the video, you'll hear him explain more about how that pre-production looks. But my summary is that one big team works on the next single-player entry game at a time. There is only a small team that works on whatever game comes next until the current project is done. During this interview, they are working on Starfield. Starfield came out in 2023. By Todd's own words, that would mean the big team would have moved over to Elder Scrolls 6 around that time. Now, if you want to give Todd a couple years of a pass due to COVID, fine. But by 2018, it had been 7 years since the release of Skyrim, and they had only started pre-production. One of the highest selling and most influential games in history is Skyrim. Its sequel didn't even get started on pre-production until 2018.
What are the...
Well, I also think, oh, this was 2019. I also think it's important to understand that, like, I've heard both takes at this point, because after the Fallout show came out, everybody was like, how do they not have Fallout 5 ready to go, or a remake or something? And people were saying, I think they should have walked away from Elder Scrolls 6, and they should have worked on Fallout immediately after Starfield to get ready for the show. I can understand why that would be a pitch or a strategy. But Elder Scrolls 6 is also a massive franchise, like Skyrim is also gigantic. So their problem is that they just don't have the capacity to work on these massive IP quick enough to satisfy even their own fans. And that's a problem much bigger than anything else. They do have a lot more staff than they did. Skyrim was built by like 120 people, roughly, according to the interviews at the time. It was around 120 people. And Elder Scrolls 6 will be built by probably 400 to 700 people, not including all of the contractors and everything, but a much bigger team. So, yeah, I mean, to say that because they weren't working on it faster, that implies mismanagement. I don't necessarily agree with that, just because, like, I personally, cancel me, I don't care. I think they shouldn't have made Starfield. Cancel me. I don't care. I think it was a waste of time. I know it's shocking coming from me. But I think that they probably should have passed on that and gotten right to work on like a Fallout game. They could have had Fallout 5 in 2023. They could have gone straight to Elder Scrolls after Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, had that out in 2023, and then be working on Fallout 5 right now. Like, I think that would have worked out just fine. Cancel me. I don't care. Go for it. It's just my opinion. But I do think realistically that they could not have known how mediocre Starfield would have ended up and how the community would not have connected with it. They were hoping that Starfield would literally be received like Skyrim in space. That's what they were trying to achieve, and it didn't work. Hindsight's 2020. I get that. They were trying to do something different and bold and new, and it just didn't really land for many, many reasons. I made an 8-hour video talking about it and explaining all of my thoughts. It's called the Starfield Saga. Recommend you check it out. But to say that because they hadn't worked on it sooner, therefore implies mismanagement, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they just made a bet and they lost, and it didn't really work out.
Sort of pros and cons of letting that series sit dormant for that long?
Well, first of all, Elder Scrolls Online is hugely, hugely popular.
This is something he says so often. Listen to him. When people are like, it's been so long since the last single player game, he always brings up the live service offering. It's always, it's been so long since Fallout 4. Well, Fallout 76 is bigger than ever, and it's been super popular, and everybody's loving it. At some point, when somebody tells you something 15,000 times, believe them. Listen to them. He's said many, many times that he effectively views the live service offering as a panacea to the ill that is long wait periods between games. He sees it as a solution. It's an offering for you to get a fix of Fallout while you're waiting for Fallout 5. Just play 76. You want some Elder Scrolls? You need a little bite of some Elder Scrolls? Go play ESO. That's how they view it. That's how they view it. I disagree with it because I don't really like those online games. They're not for me. They're not built for me, and they're not built for players like me. I want the single player stuff. I want the narrative stuff. I want the adventure, and I don't want the live service crap. But they don't view it that way, which explains the strategy. Because for him, he does not view it as 20 years between Fallout 4 and Fallout 5. Like, he doesn't view that the same way that you and I do, where it's like, God, I'm waiting 20 years between Fallout games. Because for him, he's like, no, in 2018, you got a Fallout game, and that's had 10 years of content. So really, if Fallout 5 launches in 2033 and Fallout 76 is operating until 2030, you only had to wait for 3 years. So be grateful.
And the team doing that at ZeniMax Online is fabulous. So it's not that we're not feeding high quality Elder Scrolls to people.
No, but
it is like that though. Like this is why I would love to do one of these interviews, because like they would say something like that. So like
is fabulous. So it's not that we're not feeding high quality Elder Scrolls to people.
No.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is like that though, because you're feeding fans something they actively dislike. They hate it. Well, it's not like we're not feeding our Fallout fans high quality Fallout stuff in the form of Fallout 76. Yeah, but like they don't want it or like it. So it's kind of like you're not doing that. So it's kind of like the opposite of what you just said. Help me understand. What do you mean? Yeah, just like a little pushback. Just a little. This guy is like the senior editor at IGN. He's been around for ages, okay? He's the guy that did, I think he's the one that did the infamous Prey review. No, not Prey. Alien Isolation review, where they gave it a really bad score and everybody else thought the game was amazing. McCaffrey, yeah, that's it. He's been around for ages, and I'm not bringing that up to be like, don't pay attention to him. He's like a legend in this space, okay? He's been around forever. He's an OG. He's been doing this for like decades. But because he's been doing it for decades, I think like a lot of these people he's friends with, and he's known for a long time because he's in the industry, right? And that can sometimes lead to a little bit of I don't know, maybe a bias where you like, these guys don't get called out for things that maybe you should push back on. I'm not saying you got to be a dick to Todd. Like, I'm not saying that at all. I just think it's like when your buddy says something kind of stupid and you're like, okay. But if he was not your buddy and he was just some dude talking at a bar, you'd be like, shut up. You know, what are you talking about? You know, it's the difference between being cordial and like friendly and buddy, and then being like a journalist interviewing somebody who said something that was just not accurate, you know, not true. Because in this case, I think what Todd just said is not accurate. You're not giving fans what they want, which is why people are dissatisfied. And whenever I watch any of these interviews, I'm like, pushback, just a little pushback. Let's do a little pushback. Can you do an interview with Todd, like with Maddie? I would always be open to it if Todd ever wanted to chat. We've made a couple of attempts to reach out to the company. It's not like I have his cell phone number or anything, but we made a couple of attempts to reach out to the company. And I'd be shocked if he wanted to, but I would always be down. And to be clear, I'm not saying I'd be shocked because like he can't handle it. He can handle it. He's a grown man. It's because I'm a YouTuber who sits here burning a candle with his picture photoshopped onto a saint, and I have a cardboard cutout of him in the background, and we commonly make jokes about praying to him. It's a little weird, okay? Totally fair if he doesn't want to chat. Totally fair, okay? I'd be weirded out too.
But
yeah, I know.
You know yourself
Yeah,
that
I know.
a lot of your fans don't want to play with other people in the Elder Scrolls
Okay,
world.
little pushback. A lot of your fans don't want to play with other people.
Todd was trying to deflect there by mentioning the Elder Scrolls Online, but the interviewer does a fantastic job recognizing what Todd was trying to do and calls him out on it. Almost the exact second that Todd gets...
What about Corey? Oh, dude, I would love to chat with Corey, but I also understand Corey is working on a very large video game. And I would guess when the time is right and Corey is promoting his game and is like doing the press circuit, I would reach out and we would try to set something up. And I would be interested if he was willing to chat at that point. But obviously right now when he's building the game, there's not a lot. I mean, what would we talk about? It's just like, can you tell me anything? Yeah, it wouldn't go much anywhere. But we'll figure it out.
pushback, he starts going, yeah, I know, because he knew what the interviewer was trying to say.
No, but
yeah, I know.
you know yourself that
I know.
a lot of your fans.
This series was built on single player
Dude, this immediately, like, the hemming and hawing.
Yeah, I know.
back, he starts going, yeah, I know, because he knew what the interviewer was trying to say.
No, but
I know.
you know yourself that
I know.
a lot of your fans.
This series.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Because he does know. He's spinning it because Todd's a salesman. He's a cheeky little salesman. He knows what he's doing, you know? Anybody who's like, oh, I think he's just, you know, that he misunderstood the question. No, he knows what you're saying. He knows what you're saying. He's spinning it because he's a good salesman. He's very good at it. But that's why if you give a little pushback, you can actually get an answer.
This was built on single player experiences. He asked you about The Elder Scrolls 6, not ESO DLC.
The gap in between is obviously going to be long. On one hand, I think it's good to miss things. You know what I mean? I think.
Yeah, this is a legitimate answer. And this one, I think, is a valid answer to the question. Why do we have to wait 20 years between big releases? And then he comes and says, I think it's okay to miss things. I kind of want people to miss things. That is a very, very valid question or valid answer. And I think it's part of the magic of like Elder Scrolls and Fallout and everything else that they do is that because there's such a gap, when it comes, it is a moment, you know? And that's been something that like Xbox, for example, has struggled to build are moments because like Doom comes out and then Doom is out. And it just kind of like comes along, there's a little bloop and then it moves on. And like nobody's talking about it anymore. But then with Elder Scrolls and with Fallout, when there's something, it's a big deal. And I think it's because there's such big gaps and he allows people to miss it. It's the opposite of the Assassin's Creed problem, you know? Assassin's Creed, you get so many freaking games and spin-offs and DLC crossover, whatever things, that it's hard to miss it at all. Because, like, if anything, you're probably just overwhelmed with how much stuff there is. And then on the flip side, you get something like this, or you get something like, what's another? I mean, Witcher, where obviously by the time The Witcher 4 comes out, it will have been over a decade. Already it's been over a decade since The Witcher 3, but like an actual decade since we got anything like that. Same with Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk, probably the sequel comes out, I'm guessing 2029 to 2030, which will put it about a decade after the fact. And so those will feel like real moments for sure.
That makes people come to it with really, really fresh eyes. And I think when they eventually see the game and what we have in mind, they'll understand the gap more in terms of technology and what we want it to do.
I guess it'll be the first time that.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you're taking time, you just, if you're going to take a big gap, you got to wow people when you come. That sounded sexual. If we're going to take a long time to build a video game, Ayo? If we're going to take a long time to build a video game, when you eventually arrive with the video game to present to your fans, you need to wow people. And I think that was the big problem with like Starfield, is that it was such a big build up. It came out and everybody was like, oh, okay. And it didn't stick the landing, which is the bigger problem. I think Todd has you out on blacklist at this point. I would have thought that too, but dude, they still sent me like review code. They still sent me I got the freaking Starfield jacket, like the actual bomber jacket thing. That's comically too big for me. And so I think like maybe now in the aftermath, maybe because they're like, oh God, he's still talking about it. But I don't know. We would have fun. I mean, I wouldn't be a jerk. I wouldn't be a dick. We just like to meme on it because we're fans. We're fans, fam. We're fans.
Elder Scrolls has missed a whole console generation.
In a certain way, yeah. We put out the special editions, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Oh, yes.
See, that was good. Ryan gave a little pushback, and then like you could see he was about to spin it. Well, no, we got the anniversary, but then he's like, nah, okay, yeah, no, we're gonna miss it.
In a certain way, yeah. We put out the.
See, he's about to spin it, and then you see a moment where he's like, no, okay, never mind.
Special editions, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, just be real, dude. Just be real. I think people would connect so much better and would not meme or hold Todd's feet to the fire so bad if the marketing spin was just toned down a little bit. Like, I think if they tone down the marketing spin, it would help a lot, in my opinion. Because I think it's just part of the reason that the meme of like, tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. I think the reason why that has become such a thing is because every time you hear Todd talk, it's like this. It's like this marketing mumbo jumbo spinning it. So you never really know what the real answer is because it's always being spun. And I think if it was just like chill and real, that would not be a problem. It's just like the complete polar opposite of this. You know, the guys that just don't do this, it's the Warhorse guys, the guys behind KCD2. They are total bros. I mean, like, seriously, they will just openly joke and goof around with you and be like, oh no, it's the game's broken. It must be because we suck at our jobs. You know, like they'll like be self-deprecating and silly and joke, like, because they're just having fun. They're just like having a good time building video games. You know, they are the polar opposite, maybe sometimes to a problematic degree, because they might even get themselves in trouble by being too clearly worded. But that's because they're European. Maybe I've heard it's a Czech thing. I've heard it's a Czech Republic thing, is that they are very just like matter of fact. Somebody phrased it when I was in Prague. They phrased it as like, welcome to Prague. I've never been to America, but my friends tell me that Prague and the Czech Republic is like Florida in your country. So that the people are very much like in Florida. I was like, okay. Like I was like, I'm not sure how that connects, but in the sense that like just they're all kind of crazy. They don't give a crap. They are very, very secure in themselves. That's the vibe I got. Like the Czech Republic, the people within like the Czech people, they have no insecurity. They are totally chill. Like you go to Germany and it feels like everybody's walking on eggshells. Everybody's like scared of like their own cultural legacy, let's just say, which fair. I would probably be too. But in like Prague, everybody's just like, sup. Like they are so chill. It's very funny. Anyway, continuing. I would also be chill, dude, if I lived off of smoked cheese and pretzels and beer all day. Oh, what a vibe.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Ah, yes, the multitude of special editions that were so hard to develop, Todd. You're right. It's basically entirely new games every time you release Skyrim Special Edition.
Are you thinking about 6 in a whole new way, or is it just the fact that you are busy with Starfield and technology kind of pair with that at all, with allowing you to change your thinking?
It's a little of both, right? We had done so many things. We're going Elder Scrolls Fallout, Elder Scrolls Fallout.
Yeah.
You have this Starfield game in your head. You sort of say, well, when? It can be never. You can say never. We're creatives, and it's like, okay, we have to make this game, and this is the time. And so Elder.
This is something that I do want to point out. If, honest question in chat, cultural legacy, please elaborate. 1939. Dude, do I need to elaborate beyond that? September 1939. Oops. Big oops happened there. Starfield Saga. If you did not, please, no more elaboration. If you did not see this was a video I posted. Dude, it's been a year. This is in the old studio, the room right on the other side of the wall. But in this video, I show some of the old school forum posts that Todd made back in like the 90s. I actually found forum posts that he had made. Let me see. Oh yeah, these are some of the old ones. But these are old forum posts that have been backed up in Google Groups of all things. You can still find some of them. But you can see that there are references to Todd Howard. This is the actual Todd Howard, posted April 3rd, 1997. And you can still find these today. You can still find these statements. And As you can see here, where they're talking about easy, I don't agree with System Shock Shu and Mech 2. They've received plenty of kudos and awards. Ultima 7, many think 4 and 6 are better, but I disagree. Times of Lore, Chris Roberts' first game for Origin, and the original parseless interface that Sierra stole. Future Shock, Karateka, Apple II, The Horde. Like, you can actually still find these, okay? Many of them have been lost to time, but a lot of them are backed up, even still. And in those old forum posts going back to the 90s, you can find references where Todd is explaining how he would love to do a big expansive space RPG. And it's very, very cool. It's very, very cool because it does mean, like, when he says we've wanted to do this game for a long time, he is not joking. He wanted to do that game back in the 90s. And then they decided that was the time to try it. And I would love to know if he honestly, with like no marketing BS or spin, if he honestly thinks that it like lived up to his vision of it. I would love to know. If the answer is yes, I find that almost more interesting than if he says no, there's stuff I would like to do differently. But I would love to know.
Elder Scrolls 6 is going to have to wait a little bit. And plus, again, Elder Scrolls Online is doing so well. It's so vibrant that this is the time. If we could compress that time and have it all happen faster, I could wave a magic wand. Of course we would. But we're not going to sacrifice that.
I mean, you could theoretically farm it out to one of the other BGS studios and you just oversee it from here. If you wanted it, out that badly, but it will be done here by you.
The kind of things that we're talking about are going to take a lot of people. Yeah. Every BGS studio will probably be involved in that game, and even Starfield right now, not really in Austin, but in Dallas and in Montreal, there's staff on Starfield as well.
And this is where it's Todd's specific leadership style that comes into question. For a while, it had been Elder Scrolls Fallout, Elder Scrolls Fallout. Skyrim is one of the highest selling games of all time. Then Fallout is extremely popular in its own right. Then comes Starfield. Yeah, I understand the desire as developers to make content for you. I have that same logic with my own channel. I know when I start playing an obscure game for 20 years ago, I'm probably not going to get a lot of views on it, but I do it for me. It's what makes this fun. The big team that works on the main games probably wanted a break from the other titles, but it's still an experimental passion project. That should have been given to a smaller team to work on for 15 years.
I'm not going to fly 3,000 miles and not ask about Elder Scrolls 6 at least a little.
Sure, go ahead.
Especially when you're sitting in front of a freaking Elder Scroll. Fair question, dude. There's something on that table. What was I going to ask you? I totally forgot. I actually would say I don't personally, and the literal wall from the opening. I do not have a problem with teams doing something wacky, but I do think it's fair for the fans to feel frustrated when they feel like basically 5 years was spent on something they have no interest in. Like, for example, Pentiment is a good example of when this is done really well, I think. Pentiment is a weird game. It's just freaking weird. It's hard to describe to people who have not played it and don't know what it's like, but it is this, like, it's a narrative game and it's done in this medieval art style. It's very experimental. It's strange. And it's one of those games that would never, ever do well in a big commercial setting because it's just weird. It's weird, but it's very good. But this is not something like I would say this is a good project for a smaller team to work on, and then they put it together and they pop it off, and it did very, very well. But I would not blame people to be upset if they were to like have the entire team work on this for a number of years, and then it's just like, oh, this is all it is. Okay, it's just not for me. So I think this is a good example of like the passion project that's executed well, especially because people and developers can certainly get creatively. Maybe bored is the wrong word. Fatigued is the word I've heard a lot of creatives use when they work on one IP or genre for a decade or 2 decades and they just need to change something. They've been working on The Witcher for 10 years. They put out The Witcher 3. They're like, let's do Cyberpunk. We announced that a few years back. Let's actually do it now. Or in the case, like, I personally am really, I suspect that there might be a total shift from like Rockstar after GTA 5 or GTA 6. I think they might go into a new IP or just something totally different. I think we probably see Warhorse do something totally different. You're seeing it from Naughty Dog right now, where they finished freaking The Last of Us Part 2. They worked on some live service stuff for a bit that got canceled, and now they're doing a totally new IP, sci-fi game, totally different. Owlcat, yeah, they do a bunch of Warhammer stuff. Now they're going to do The Expanse and actually go sci-fi, high production value, third person. Crazy. But I think that is something that's totally valid. So I will defend their choice to try something different in the form of Starfield, because again, nobody sets out to make a mid-game or to make a game that doesn't satisfy their fans. Like, they were hoping that they would put out Starfield and it would be the next Skyrim, that people would play it and go, oh my God, give us Starfield 2. That's what they were hoping. It just didn't really happen. Didn't really click that way. And, c'est la vie. What are you going to do? It is what it is. No sense crying over spilled milk. Blah, de blue, de blah, blah.
Fair question. I get asked a lot.
It's going to be roughly, probably 15 years between Elder Scrolls games. Because
what's funny is he said in 2019 in the last interview, he's like, it's going to be a decade between games. Now it's been 2 more years. It's now been a decade since Skyrim, because it's 2021. And now he's like, so it's going to be 15 years, which is closer. But I still think it's going to be more like 17 to 18.
You're busy with another little thing called Starfield, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. Is that a good thing, do you think, or is that not ideal?
Well, look, I think that's a really great question, a way of putting it. For me, when I look at franchises, is it vibrant? Okay, Skyrim still is. Elder Scrolls Online is huge. It's one of the biggest online games in the world, and that's part of our company, even though our studio isn't developing it. We work with them. I think they've done an absolutely phenomenal job. So when I look at the Elder Scrolls as a franchise, is it healthy? Is it doing well? Yes. Would you plan to have the kind of gap we're having between Skyrim and the follow-up? I can't say that's a good thing, right? I wish I could wave a wand and the game that we want to make and we have in our head, we're starting things on, just came out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's other things we want to do, right?
A few years later,
and I think that's fair. I think it's fair. Development is not magic, but I think that, again, the frustration, I understand why he frames Elder Scrolls Online as being healthy and being great, and why, like, that means the franchise is healthy. But again, I think that there's just this huge disconnect between the core fan base and the online players and stuff, where, like, the core fan base does not view Elder Scrolls Online really as Elder Scrolls. They view it as something else, as like a spin-off. They just do. I understand it's the same IP. I understand that it's canonical or whatever. I get all of that. But pretty clearly, with how often people say it'll be 20 years between Elder Scrolls games, most people don't consider it to be part of the IP, part of the franchise. They think it's something different, something else, something on the outside. And it's just frustrating to constantly hear it reframed as like, well, ESO's there, so stop complaining.
Todd is still saying the same things. Skyrim is still selling. Elder Scrolls Online is amazing. The strange part is how he takes the success of the Elder Scrolls brand and says that's why they aren't going to develop new ones. Skyrim and ESO are...
Well, to be clear, he's not saying they're not developing new ones. They are developing new ones. It's just taking a while. So to be clear, like it's not fair to say he's not. And I think that there is certainly mismanagement within Bethesda. There's plenty of it. In fact, one of the other things, I think we'll run out of time to do, but Kiwi Talks did a podcast. We actually interviewed Dennis Mejilones, one of the former character artists at Bethesda, who talked about his time at the studio. And one of the big things he talks about was the work culture and how inefficiently it was managed.
Another pain in the ass, honestly, with the studio going in the direction that it did. Just too many producers, too many managers, too many hands in the pot, and just like, that hurts the game. I know the intention is to make things more efficient, but it's, in my opinion, actually makes it worse.
Fascinating interview. I think maybe on Friday or something we'll go through some of this stuff, because it is very interesting. Because he also left the studio, as did a lot of people after Starfield. But yeah, I think there is mismanagement, but the big picture stuff, I don't want to blame them for trying something different with Starfield. I think studios should try different things. You shouldn't just make the same thing 15 times. I know people are saying, well, part of the problem is that it didn't feel different from Skyrim. I get what you mean. I totally understand what you're saying. But what I mean is, like, they tried a new IP, they tried a new setting, they tried doing something different, and the execution didn't come together, and so it didn't land the way they wanted it to. But that's a separate thing. I still think that they should try different things. They should try that. My broader frustration with all of this is, again, just the assertion that, well, the live service stuff should satisfy you. Clearly it doesn't. And that at least suggests a disconnect between Todd and the core fan base that likes the single player stuff.
Are still so popular, so why would we make any more right now? Again, this isn't the strenuous labors of game development. He is actively directing the big team to work on other projects. The success of Skyrim was to the detriment of Elder Scrolls 6.
Starfield, thinking about Elder Scrolls 6.
Well, I think also the other piece, it's not also just Starfield. Like Fallout 76, I think, was the big distraction. Because that built out probably like 3-4 years of time between building it and then trying to fix it. So that definitely extended timelines a lot.
So what's it take to take a game from the idea to find the final product?
We were always overlapping. While we're making one game, probably by the midpoint of one game, we've had enough conversations to understand what the next one's going to be. What are the big ticket, like, where's it set? What's the tone? Is there a big ticket feature or two that make it really unique? And then when we're finishing one game, we start, before that, we start concepting. So
what do you think the big ticket item is going to be in Elder Scrolls 6? Because I agree, every time that there's a Bethesda game, there is some big ticket item. With like Fallout 4, it's the cinematic approach, the overhauled gunplay. They also had a new dialogue system as well, which came with the voice protagonist. So they had all of these things that were, and the base building is probably the other big thing. But what is going to be the big mechanic in Elder Scrolls 6? I suspect they're going to reuse the procedural generated environment tech from Starfield, and I think they're going to repurpose it into endless like dungeons. So think of like the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne, but I think that they're going to do it where like you go into a cavern and it's just endless. Because I think they're going to find some way to reuse the procedural tech. I'm not saying I like that, but I think that that's one thing they're going to do. I think they'll also have castle building, as I've described before. I think they'll have that. So the base building system will be reworked into a castle system with companions doing things around the castle. You could have them crafting arrows for you. You could have them brewing potions or crafting food and stuff for you. So your companions are involved within your castle. I think that'll be it. And then I also think they probably will have some ship customization building system or something where you'll have an actual ship sailing along the coast, and that will be like their fast travel system. I wouldn't be surprised if they swing the complete opposite way and get rid of fast travel except on your ship because people complained about it. That's what I think. So, but we'll see. You guys have some good guesses too. Realistic Khajiit feet. Boom. That would work. Deirdre portals. Basically, yeah. I mean, I think it would just be like, do you really think they spent all that time on the procedural tech for Starfield and they're not going to touch it again for like 10, 15 years before they do the sequel? No. I think they're going to reuse it, and they're going to use it for like endless dungeons and stuff.
We'll do concept art. So take Elder Scrolls 6. We forgot where it's set. What's the tone? What are the big features? We discussed the beginning of the game, which we've had for a very long time.
Where's it set again?
Yep. In Tamriel. Again, we're working on the world. You're then doing concepting and design for the world. And then once we're wrapping up one game, we can really start prototyping. And that's still what we call a VS, vertical slice. So you still don't have the full team on it. And it's a larger chunk of the game that you can play. And then once you feel good about that, you're going to bring on the rest of the team. And we're fortunate that the other games we've done are popular enough that we can be doing DLC and content and those kind of things while we're getting the one going. And then we're at full production where we're sort of at maximum size. We just call that production. That's like the full production period.
And that, depending on the game, can run a year, 2 years, maybe more. And then you kind of have a final 6 months to a year on a game, which is, okay, we've built everything now. And usually it needs a lot of glue, where we have a lot of very different elements that maybe aren't clicking together the way you want outside of the regular polish for levels and features. And we're shaving and gluing and sticking things together so that it's not this schizophrenic game experience, that things flow from one into another.
By the time of this interview in 2022, it's still 10 months before Starfield is released in September of 2023, which means they've only done conceptual work with a small team on Elder Scrolls 6 for the last 4 years. He calls this the vertical slice period. Eventually you bring on the main team after that for finalizing, which they call actual production. That's another 6 months to a year. Then another gluing phase, which he doesn't really give a timeline on. If I could speculate a little bit, I would say from the release of Starfield in September of 2023, that we would still be in the actual production phase still, not the glue phase. Again, I'm not sure what the glue phase length would be like, but at this point I would say it would be coming out anytime between 2026 and 2028. Just using his own metrics.
Gamers love great games, so getting to work with ZeniMax to bring their amazing collection of games to Game Pass is just an incredible opportunity for us.
Are you making cuts to this company as you acquire it, or are you going to leave it alone?
Our plan is to leave it alone. I mean, ZeniMax has an amazing track record of building great games. Our goal is to make ZeniMax the best ZeniMax they can be, working individually with their studios on the great platform technology that we have, getting their creators' feedback into the things that we need to go build. That's just a critical flywheel for us innovating, is the feedback of the world's best creators on our platforms.
All right.
We're really hoping this works out because we just spent a lot.
Luke Warfield 2002 donated $9.99 through Super Chat. Luke, I know you don't loop to doom and gloom, but does it get to a point you just lose respect for Todd? People defend it and say he may be ignorant, but he doesn't care about the fans and only paycheck.
I think, the old saying is, don't attribute to malice or intention what can be adequately explained by incompetence. And I think that a lot of the mismanagement around Starfield, or more specifically Fallout 76, some of the stuff they did with Fallout 76 was borderline evil. They knew that wasn't ready. They knew how broken it was. They knew how some of those merch items were not what they had promised to people. And they repeatedly deceived their own customers and fans to sell them those things to get cash. And at some point, if you are the head of the company, that lands on you. At some point that lands on your shoulders and you have to answer for it. So I think for Todd, Fallout 76 is still something that unfortunately taints his legacy. As for right now, with Starfield, what I more have a problem with is that there is just such regular, what I would view as disrespect of their previous games and IP and even the fan base, with the paid mods being built out and with the creations being forced into everything, even to its own detriment, breaking mods, breaking other things. They released the Fallout 4 next gen update I think it was a day or two before the Fallout London expansion DLC or mod was set to release. They had previously tweeted stuff about it, I believe. They knew about it, and they chose to do that intentionally, seemingly to break the game and mod support so that you couldn't download that mod. It was just weird. It's just weird. So I think no matter what, you have to have some respect for Todd for building some amazing franchises and games, and he does have a fantastic track record, I would argue, pre-2018. The problem is just that for a decade, it's just been miss, and every miss you can directly connect to and correlate to a pursuit of a quick paycheck with paid mods, or with Fallout 76 and the live service thing. When they sell to Microsoft, he probably got some big bonus and stuff like that. And at some point that I think has to affect your opinion of him. But Yeah, they knew about the London mod, but didn't really offer much coverage and even acknowledgement that the community loves your game. I think Bethesda seems to hate the fact that some other people can do better with their own IP. There is a weird snark with it, I think, for sure. I think, yeah, it's just, I think that there is, realistically what's happened is that over the last handful of years, I think BGS has grown a ton, and they've pumped out all of these live service games, the mobile games. I think it's made Todd a lot of money. And I think that he is looking to the messaging that tells him what he wants to hear, which is that everything's going great and that they have more players than ever playing Elder Scrolls, if you count ESO and Blades, and then the new Fallout Shelter Elder Scrolls game. And Fallout's doing great because they have the Amazon show and all this. And so I think he's looking at the metrics, which are convenient. But then when you talk to like the core fan base that built him up into what he is, they're kind of cast to the side. So I think that that's part of the frustration. I think. But anyway, sup Hookie, thank you for being here.
So Microsoft bought ZeniMax back in 2020. Microsoft has a lot of cash. Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox at the time, says he's not going to mingle too much with Bethesda. Now, I'm not calling for anybody to lose their job. In fact, I would call for the opposite. I think Todd Howard wants control. He's been with the company most of his life at this point, and he rose through the ranks. He's been around for a long time, with the later entries of Fallout and the Elder Scrolls for more than 2 decades. But Microsoft is in control now. If I were Microsoft, I would keep Todd around, but increase from one big team working on every major title in sequential order into one big team for each major IP, with their smaller studios or outside studios to work on other projects within the IP, like they did with Virtuous on the Oblivion Remastered. I think the Oblivion Remaster is a great example that you could put the workload onto another studio who is hungry to work with these franchises.
Yeah, I mean, that's a weird example just because like it is it's a very capable team that's done a lot of work. Virtuos has done, I mean, they've worked on pretty much everything you've probably ever played. Like they're huge. They have like 4,000 employees or something. But they were working on a remaster thing. So like all the work was basically done and then they were just kind of putting in a new wrapper. But I get what you mean. They could give it and trust it to other people. But I think the best example of a studio that's handled this predicament of having big IP people want more of is CDPR. I mean, again, they opened up new studios in Boston and then I think in Toronto maybe, or Montreal, but they opened up new studios in North America that are going to just do Cyberpunk. And they'll do some work on Witcher. I think they're also doing work on the Witcher multiplayer game, but they're mainly working on Cyberpunk. And then they have the team back in Poland who's working on the Witcher. And so they can have these 2 gigantic studios that are specializing in building stuff out, and they're on other sides of the planet. So technically, at any given moment, somebody's working on The Witcher, somebody's working on Cyberpunk, because they're on opposite sides of the planet. And so no matter what, somebody's always working on it, always pumping through it. And I think that's part of what's going to help them pump out these games much, much faster. Because as I said in the video that went up this morning, no joke, we are expected to get The Witcher 4, Cyberpunk's sequel, a Witcher 1 remake, a Witcher spin-off multiplayer game, The Witcher 5, potentially also a new IP from them, and maybe The Witcher 6, all before Fallout 5 launches. And that's like an optimistic timeline. That's assuming they get Fallout 5 out in like 2033, which would be like a 5-year dev cycle, which they might not hit. So like, that's what we're talking about in terms of efficiency. In the time that Bethesda will put out 2 games, they will put out like 6 or 7 big like AAA stuff. So yeah, Cyberpunk will use UE5. It will. Yeah. The job postings they have are for UE5 specifically. Yeah, they'll put out 6, 7. How dare you? Banned. No, I'm kidding.
I have no idea when this game is coming out, but I think Todd bungled this for years. And it's entirely on him. Yes, these games are huge. They take a lot of work. And no, I don't want anything to be rushed. But you still need to work on them. If Starfield was what Todd was passionate about, I think he should have just made a smaller team, and him and that team could have worked on that. Then he finds another person to lead the other major projects. However, I don't think that was ever going to happen because that would mean Todd giving up control. So I think he went with the worst option to retain control and invest into a very risky bet that I don't think worked out for anyone. Folks, that's all I've got for this video.
Yeah, I agree he should let go. Good video, by the way, Livid. Even if I push back occasionally on stupid stuff, because I'm pedantic. Still very good video, Livid. And I'll give you the sub and the like, of course, as I recommend everybody does. But I think Todd should give up control a little bit because he has always been weird about it. Even to this day, if you bring up Fallout New Vegas, they still are weird about it. In one of the recent interviews I saw from like the Fallout show launching, somebody brought up Fallout New Vegas and Todd went, people forget that we published it. It was one of our games. I was like, he's like trying to jump on Fallout New Vegas now, like as if it was their project. What are we doing? What are we doing, man? But I think there's always been something weird. And I think it's partially that he likes control. And I think it's also partially that they have a weird contempt over the fact that like a lot of people's favorite Fallout game is one they didn't make. It was like a cheap spin-off that they had. And I think they have a problem with that. And I do think if they wanted to grow and expand Bethesda and get a new satellite studio that just is focused on like Fallout, you could have them start working on Fallout 5 right now and then hire and expand. You could do that. And I think Phil Spencer would bankroll it and would agree to do it. And I think you could start the ball rolling on that today if they wanted to. But that, I don't think Todd can run that. And all of this whole video posted 6 months ago, this doesn't even include the fact that Todd was executive producer on the Indiana Jones game. What is he doing with that? Why is he doing that when he's got all this other stuff going on? Like, why is he doing that? Not a great use of your time, dude. The game turned out great, so maybe it was a great use of your time for all I know. But like, why is that your focus? Why are you doing that when you're so far behind on the other stuff? I don't know. But interesting video, interesting topic, and I always like seeing Todd clips from back in the day. And it makes you really realize, like, all of this goes back to it being announced in 2018, and that was like so early that it just led to, I think, a lot of confusion as to where the game was and what the state was. But at the end of the day, it was revealed at that point so that they could milk more money from the sale. And that's the only reason it was revealed.
Dogmatic Socrates
they had not touched it yet.
donated $10 through Super Chat. Everyone on YouTube talks about how bad the 5090 is, but I've been playing every AAA game in 8K DLSR at 130 FPS plus with DLAA and multi-frame generation X4 with less artifacting than the 4090. 5090 is underrated and misunderstood. The 5090 is a beast. I don't know. I'm sure mainly people are bringing up the cost to frame ratio, and multi-frame generation is, of course, very controversial. A lot of people hate it, but it is a beast. It is a beast. I mean, you'd hope so, because it's like freaking, I don't know, how much is it? $2,000, $3,000? I guess it depends on which version, but yeah, they're expensive, but they're powerful for sure. And they're probably going to get more expensive now too. Probably. But I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying your 5090. Glad to hear that. Booyah. The thing with the 5090 and the 4090 too, to be fair, is that you really need a good monitor for it. A lot of people try to jump into it too early and use it when they don't have the monitor with the quality to do it. You need like a 4K 240 hertz monitor to enjoy a 5090. That's just my opinion. Cancel me. I don't care. Cancel me. I don't care. Do what you're gonna do. Real quick, also Rafael Carvalho 2569, thank you for the super chat. Send Todd /BGS his own cardboard cutout with an invite.
Dude, that would get me like, they would call the FBI. They're like, they sent me this like worn down cardboard cutout of me with like an invitation somewhere. Dude, that would be funny. This just in, Luke Stevens canceled him. Yeah, everyone, you heard him. He doesn't care. Cancel him. Cancel me. I don't care. Jesus. Anyway, fam. I will leave it there. Our groceries just got delivered to the front door, so I've got to go pick those up and put them away. Thankfully, it's very cold outside, so it's basically one gigantic refrigerator, but I still need to put it away. So I will call it there, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a wonderful, wonderful day, and I've enjoyed spending it with you. I will be back on Friday, rocking and rolling, as always. You guys have a fantastic American Thanksgiving if you are in America celebrating Thanksgiving. Otherwise, have a great Thursday tomorrow, and I will see you in the next one, okay? Go watch the new video. It goes through everything we know about Cyberpunk's sequel. It's more than you probably think. Check it out on the main channel, Luke Stevens. I'll see you there. Much love. Till next time. Love you.